And good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. And since it's Friday, that means Chief Grand Poobah here at Press Box, Stan the Fan Charles, is in studio with us. Stan, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah, you sure?
I'm fine.
All right. It's good to see you. Got a lot to do this morning, including a lot to do really in the first hour, as we're going to catch up with a former Orioles farmhand who went on to find some success. And now, post-playing career, is back with the Pittsburgh Pirates as a television analyst. Stephen Brault is going to spend some time with us. You might have seen him pitch at, like, Aberdeen at some point in your life. Also this morning, Janet Marie Smith, who, of course, such an integral part of, well, frankly, baseball history, but clearly Oriole Park at Camden Yards. She's going to join us, as it was really her and Larry Lucchino and their vision that gave us the ballpark that, you know, quote-unquote, forever changed baseball. And so we'll celebrate and remember Larry Lucchino this morning with Janet Marie Smith. Something I wanted to do with you here because I know how much you revere Larry, and we've been talking recent weeks about your reverence for Larry, so I wanted to do that with you here this morning.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm very fond of Larry, and I wrote a piece about it. Hadn't been as close with him in the last few years, but special guy, and time for a little bit of reflection on just what the last 25, 30, let's see, would have been 92 that 93 that the team was sold. So 30 years, and I found it really, and I put that in my piece, what an irony it was that the last two leaders of the Orioles pass away within 10 days of each other, and yet they're 16 years apart in age, and Peter Angelos and Larry Lucchino. It just seemed like a bitter irony.
I agree with that. No, you've talked about the need to get Larry Lucchino in the Orioles Hall of Fame, and you hope that with new leadership at the top, that might be something that could be revisited. You hope. That's all I'm saying, Stan. You hope. Yeah. That's all I can say about it.
I don't know that David Rubenstein read my piece in last month's press box.
You don't think that
the current one, the one that's out now.
Well, perhaps someone will point him in that direction at some point. I don't know.
One can only hope.
That's why I keep saying all you can do is hope. Today's show is brought to you by Atman's Deli, of course, now open in Harbor Point. It's everything you love about Atman's, that you've always loved, because it's been a part of your life for as long as you've been here in Baltimore. It's the corned beef. It's the delicious desserts. It's the soups. It's the hand-rolled bagels.
It's the pickles.
By the way, full pickle bar.
Yeah.
Everything pickled. Not just the pickles themselves, but the pickled onions. It's all of that. Plus, what's different about this particular Atman's is
there's a bar.
They've got a bar. Full bar for you to hang out and watch games.
Not just a pickle bar.
Yes, a pickle bar and a bar.
Yeah.
What else could you ask for, honestly, in a
That's
restaurant?
actually a good slogan for them.
Yeah,
we've got a bar and a pickle bar.
And I'm not sure. At this point in my life, I'm more excited about the pickle bar. But for other people, they'd be way more excited about the bar. I do enjoy the bar. Even if I'm not going to be consuming any alcohol, I do like the idea of hanging out, watching games, having that type of atmosphere. And they've got it at the new Atman's in Harbor Point. AtmansDeli.com is the website
and
for
that bar has TVs.
Correct.
And today would be a great day.
It is an afternoon game.
4:10 start in Pittsburgh. You could sit there at the bar, eat a late lunch, early dinner, and watch the game.
I would encourage you, in fact, to do that. AtmansDeli.com for all of their daily specials. Stan, great consternation within Orioles Twitter because the Norfolk Tides are on pace to score, I believe, 75 billion runs this season, something along those lines. The numbers really are cartoonish to start the season. I
woke up yesterday to these. I had like 3 or 4 texts, people sending me this box score, and I was really groggy yesterday. And I open it up, and it jumps at you that you see a 10 RBI and a 7 RBI.
Yeah.
And
well, did you see Kobe Mayo's home run last night?
No.
Oh my God! Can you You put it on the screen. I'll show it.
Further than Kjerstad's?
Stan, I don't know that I've ever seen a ball hit this far.
You're going to send it to me?
I'm going to try to show it to you
okay.
here. Griffin will try to get it up on the screen. So it was an 8-8 game last night. Kobe Mayo comes up in the 9th inning. Right. And, yeah, watch how far this ball goes. Oh watch how far. Yeah, it ain't in the stadium.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's my guy.
Yeah. It's insane. As Ben Verlander joked on Twitter, Kobe Mayo just hit the furthest home run of all time, and you can't convince me otherwise.
That's well put.
I don't know how to convince. It was insane. The consternation, of course, is, and I have struggled with how to say this correctly this week, Stan, because the people that are coming after Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins roster spots, I think it's insanely misplaced. Those two dudes play defense at a very high level, and I get it. They're both off to tough starts to the season offensively, but they're guys with track records, and you don't just toss guys aside with track records and that are really good defenders. It does not work that way. So that part of the conversation is insane. I get that there's a bigger, and you and I have talked about, there's a bigger conversation.
Yeah, you've been on this topic for a while, that there's a new
guard
era
versus
on the horizon, and that horizon seems to be getting. I just don't know how they're gonna. I use the expression how they're gonna thread this needle, but this team may need. And again, 5 days from now we could be. And I wrote something along these lines, but you got to be careful. I wrote it for the next press box, but you got to be careful. In 5 days, Kobe Mayo and Kjerstad could go over the next 14.
Of course.
And Cedric Mullins could be pounding the ball, and Austin Hayes. But there is a little fear that this is their moment, those two players, where they really need to shine. This team is going to struggle if they struggle.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. I think that it's a complicated conversation, because I think if the point is simply the Orioles have players at Norfolk that are major league players and should be on major league rosters, yes, I do agree with that. If the point is that definitively these guys you are confident would definitely be up here and would definitely all be hitting 330 with 30 home runs this season, then that's misplaced. Like, I get it. I think they're guys that should be playing in the major leagues right now. Mayo, I would maybe feel the least strongly about that, because I do still think that a little bit more development could be used there with Kobe Mayo. But I understand otherwise. This group that we're talking about, Heston Kjerstad's a Major League Baseball player. Connor Norby is a Major League Baseball player.
And Kyle Stowers, Stowers we've seen since the beginning of spring training through now is definitely, in my opinion, and I don't bash Mike Eliason, I don't consider bashing. I don't understand in what world he wouldn't be more valuable to the ball club right now than Tony Kemp.
Yeah, the Tony Kemp thing is a really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, look, I had Colton Wong making the team when I predicted that Holiday.
Yep.
I was right about that, but then was wrong about Tehran and Wong. I understood Wong. He's a tremendous defender. Former Gold Glove winner at second base. I understood it was a place saver for 30 days, but that I understood. In what world is this guy more valuable to the team? I don't get it.
The Tony Kemp thing is not and as I've said before, as much as I disagreed with the Holiday decision, but not because of the development part of it, just uniquely because of the PPI part of it that I think is a miss. If you were going to go that route, it's befuddling that you wouldn't give Connor Norby his look. Like, that's the part that I keep coming back to. Like, hey, if it's not going to be Holiday, are you just announcing?
That seems almost like that. It seems almost like that's a backwards way of thinking. It's almost like they say, well, we don't want to bring Norby up because we don't want to put another obstacle in Jackson Holiday's way to be the second base.
So are you just absolutely announcing that Connor Norby's never going to be a Baltimore Oriole?
It's
100%. It feels a little bit like that.
I think if he ever ends up being a meaningful Baltimore Oriole, it's going to be at first base. That's what I think. And I've been told he's too small for first base. The infielders adapt to getting him the ball.
I guess the
but,
question,
but I see that's
right.
I see that's where Mayo eventually ends up.
And so I just don't know what the time frame would be that Connor Norby could be your first baseman, right?
No.
Like I don't.
The only good thing about him is he's 23. Stowers is 26.
Well, yeah, the Stowers thing
And
is
Kerstad, because of his
right.
college, the fact he played college and then had the myocarditis and basically missed 2 seasons, one fully because of the myocarditis, the second because of some injuries getting back into shape. He essentially had 2 years. He's 25.
100%.
Yeah.
100. So I would say I have no problem with anybody coming after Tony Kemp and why he has a roster spot. I don't think it's justifiable in any way. Yeah. It's a very difficult thing. I don't want to come after Ramon Arias in any way, but I do think that you can argue the Orioles have grown out of Ramon Arias.
I would pretty much agree with that.
They're past the part where I like Ramon Arias. I've always liked Ramon Arias, but I just think the Orioles are at a place where
it would not shock me if in 30 days Jackson Holliday's your starting second baseman, and 60 days from now, maybe 75 days from now, Kobe Mayo's starting at third base.
Wow. So Westberg's just a utility infielder at that point?
That's what I'm talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is. It's not a thought that
I mean, look, I like Jordan Westberg, and I understand why. Look, Mike Elias, the Kyle Stowers that we saw last year and the little bit he was up in 22, you sort of scratched your head. What did Mike Elias see in this guy? The guy is, I mean, he's putting up numbers now
at
AAA that are like caving in the door. He belongs in the major leagues. Mayo is better than that. I mean, he's much younger. He's 4 years younger than that. I mean, I don't see Westberg being in the class of player that Kobe Mayo is.
I certainly from a bat, there's no, you know what I mean? There's absolutely no comparison.
Right.
I think the question would be, do they believe that Kobe Mayo defensively is good enough that they trust him? Because I do think the Ryan O'Hearn conversation is going to get louder and louder as the season goes on, but Griffin and I talked about this yesterday. I'm not really interested in coming after either Mateo or Hearn's roster spot today because I do think that while they're what we know that they're not is significant, what they are is also significant for the totality of a 26-man roster. We all know that Mateo hits lefties and he brings speed off the bench late in games, and those things to me are valuable. O'Hearn is one of the few guys that you can bring up late in a game and can actually put the fear of God into a pitcher that he could change the game with one swing. I don't think that every team has those guys, and I think those roles can be valuable. But to your point about Mayo, like if at some point in 70 days...
Maybe it's Mayo for O'Hearn.
Yeah, at that point, I could absolutely see a world in which you say, I guess...
Yeah, you get Westberg's glove in there. Yeah. My point is, it's not going to shock me if... But it's really quite crazy because where are you going to find room for Holiday, Mayo, Stowers, Kerstad?
I think it's funny because now in hindsight we could say, hey, maybe the bigger issue was they were in the middle of an ownership change, but we were all so convinced that they had to trade from their depth this offseason, and to some extent they did, obviously, by moving Joey Ortiz. But it was a very miniature. We were so convinced that they were left with this. They can't just hold on to all of these guys. They don't have room for all of these guys. They didn't move them. Obviously, they still have the option to try to do that before the trade deadline. But
Shane Bieber.
It's certainly a name that has come up a great bit. Obviously, Clase would be in that conversation as well.
Jesus Luzardo is on a team that's 0-8 right now. It's
so crazy, right? I picked them to be in the playoffs. Big dummy over here.
The big dummy there is the owner of the Marlins, and moving on from Kim Ang, somehow not dissing her to the point that she resigned.
Yep.
She only led you to your first playoff appearance in like 10 years.
Despite the fact that you're really not trying.
Right, exactly.
Still, she got you into the playoffs despite the fact that you gave her nothing to work with. I've heard Kenley Jansen's name come up a little bit amongst Orioles fans the last couple of weeks.
Not real interested in Kenley.
Okay,
Jansen.
all right.
Probably he's like
I'm not-
Craig
I'm-
Kimbrell. Like that's.
I'm not
the same
sold
thing.
on
But
the
I'm
fact
not.
that
I'm not
Kim-
opposed to
Craig
stop.
Kimbrell.
Yeah, I'm not
I'm
opposed.
I'm not down on Craig Kimbrell by any means yet.
Well, and I said this the other day. If your reaction to Craig Kimbrell is about the other night, you're drunk.
What,
Like
did he let up one
right,
run?
a bloop single and stolen bases.
Yeah.
Get over that. But my concerns about Craig Kimbrell weren't about one night. My concerns about Craig Kimbrell are just the standard being what it was a year ago. And
My concerns about him, any concerns I have about him, have been mitigated somewhat by I think how great Cano has looked.
Cano has looked really
He's
good.
looked
That
really
part,
good.
you're right about it. He has looked really good so far. He has looked electric, I would say, in his appearances so far.
And I
this
know he
season.
hasn't faced the world, but do you see now what I saw in Aiken?
Yeah,
down
he's
at
looked
spring
good.
training?
He's looked good. I
really
get it.
looked
He's
good.
looked good. I agree with that. I am not. When I talk about the bullpen, it's not I'm panicked about it today. It's I think as the season goes on and they have to work more and you deal with injuries, I'd like to keep fortifying that with A arms. That's I would like to have about as many A arms as possible as the season goes on.
What's going to get lost in the shuffle, and I think it's worth noting, is we're looking at the offensive numbers of the Norfolk Tides.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh, the
think
pitching
that-
has
that-
been brutal.
It has been so far, but let's see where Chase McDermott, Cade Povich are
Sure.
2-3 weeks from now.
Yes, yes, right. It is funny that we bring up how many runs they're scoring, and then looking at
and
like when they scored 26 the other night, nobody bothers to see that
Say
they gave up 11.
11, right?
11.
Right.
And then last night again, they score 9, and Kobe Mayo hits this massive home run, but they needed it because it was an 8-8 game in the 9th inning. Like
I got into a one of those text. What are they called? Text chains.
sure,
With my doctor, because he knows me as Stan the fan.
Sure.
Some guy from Chicago was on the text chain this morning. Goes, that was your farm club that put up those numbers, and this guy was from Chicago, and he was lamenting. He goes, and those are the pitchers that we've got to look forward to.
is he a
in
White Sox
Chicago.
fan?
He is a White Sox fan.
Oh, I'm so
But
sorry.
I jumped in and said, I'll tell you what, you don't want Nick Nastrini? I'll take him.
I mean, I'd take
He's
him.
a good prospect.
Yeah, I'd take him.
He didn't let up all 26 runs, by the way.
Fair. I am not. Again, we keep using it's good problem to have, and I don't like using that because I still keep saying it's not actually a problem, but it is a situation, and at some point it will have to be addressed. The answer can't just be that eternally these guys continue to hang at the AAA level when they're not AAA players. Like, that just can't always be the answer. I do think you're right that for at least a couple of them, they'll be forced to make moves quickly. I don't know what the plan is for Connor Norby. I don't know ultimately what the plan will be for Kyle Stowers. I don't know, how much they feel like they have to do something versus the old adage in baseball, these things work themselves out, right? That like we're not going to bother trying to create a plan because somebody's going to get hurt in a couple of weeks, and then that's going to solve this problem for at least a little while. That's typically the way that most baseball
That's
teams
the old baseball expression is these things have a way of working themselves out.
and that a lot of teams, it's not just an expression, it really is a let's not try to draw a plan, because the moment we draw a plan and we say, hey, we're gonna move on from Ramon Arias, is the moment that so-and-so gets hurt, and then we feel really stupid about having moved on from Ramon Arias. I'm not saying that's how Mike Elias is operating, because he would not tell us that. I'm saying that I have talked to enough baseball people in my life to know that is a genuine operating plan that they have worked with. Like, don't make plans like that, because you don't know what's going to happen to your baseball team in 3 weeks, and you don't want to be the idiot that made that type of move right before you needed the guy that you got rid of. So I do think that still matters within this conversation, that they will at least let this play out for a while. I'll present it to you this way. You said you're writing about Hayes and Mullins. How deep into the season does it matter if they're still struggling? Because, again, it's not a week. We know that. It's not 1 week offensively that these guys struggle and now there's a problem and now you got to reconsider things. for you, when is it within a season that their offensive struggles would start to matter?
Yeah, it's interesting because if they didn't have such great prospects, we wouldn't even really be having this discussion.
Not at all.
It would be sort of like, well, they'll snap out of it or something like that. I would say, what's today? April 5th? Today is
Yep.
the 5th. I'd say, May the 1st, I'd like to see some signs of life. And I also weigh that against what the club's record is at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to. I think Boston is going to be sneakily good this year.
Okay.
I think that their hiring of Andrew Bailey is going to really. They've got some nice arms in that. With Pavetta,
Mm-hmm.
Cutter Crawford, Brian Bayo, and
Tanner Houck.
Houck and Whitlock.
Yep.
I think they're going to be sneaky good. You don't want to suddenly have a season that's reminiscent of the '84 season when the Tigers went 35-5. That you let both the Red Sox
And the Yankees.
jump significantly out, like that. It's punctured your chance to win the division. So I would say that May 1st date is fairly important to me. I'd like to see. I've been very. I have not liked what I've seen of Mullins at all. Hayes, I tend to think will be fine, but there's something with Mullins.
I don't like putting anybody else in center field, though.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
I'll deal with that. I'll deal with that.
Stan the Fan is here on a Friday edition of the program. Don't forget, County Sports Zone is the place where you should turn for all of the latest in high school sports coverage here in the state of Maryland. In the spring, of course, everything you need to know about high school boys and girls lacrosse, as well as baseball and softball, stats, schedules, results, rankings, everything you need to know. You can even play Pick'em. CountySports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Orioles hit the road for the first time this season, as Stan mentioned, this afternoon, just after 4 o'clock. They'll be in Pittsburgh playing against the Pirates.
What's the matchup? It's Grayson Rodriguez against
Jared Jones, right?
Jared Jones?
Yeah, correct? Yeah, Jared Jones today.
What do we know about him?
pretty good.
We're gonna find out a little bit more here in a minute,
in a minute.
Stan.
Okay.
That's exactly what we're
That's
gonna
why
do.
we have the guests.
That's exactly the reason. Joining us now, perhaps you remember watching our next guest pitch at Aberdeen or Frederick once upon a time. He went on. He was part of a trade as he was sent to Pittsburgh for Travis Snyder and found a great deal of success with the Pirates. Now he is with the club working as a TV analyst. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the program Stephen Brault, who's with us this morning on GCR. Stephen, it's Glenn and Stan here in Baltimore. It's great to catch up with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for having me. It's weird to be, back mentally in Baltimore. I haven't been there in a while.
It's been a minute. I was gonna say, do you have like any memories of like hanging out at the, I don't know, Aberdeen Green Turtle or something like that during the course of your time?
Oh yeah. No, I mean when I got drafted in 2013, and I played, with Baltimore for about a year and a half. Played over 3 levels. And actually, I just got married this last off season, and one of my best men.
And you're still, Stephen, you're still married?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Still married,
good. I'm glad to hear it.
Right, but he's a guy that I met while playing with the Orioles in Delmarva. Actually, I played there most of my time. I was there for a full season, and I loved it, man. It was a cool place.
That's cool, man. That's really cool that you made that memory, and that's something that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life. It's great to catch up with you. Obviously, the Orioles are in a different place these days. Clearly, you're in a different place. But the Pirates, as you guys get ready for opening day today, they're a fascinating team, right? Like, they're a team that has a lot of young it's kind of similar to what's going on in Baltimore. Tons of young talent. We've seen them step up and make some big investments to keep that young talent around. They got off to a tremendous start to the season, clearly.
6-1.
How much excitement is there right now about the direction of the Pirates?
There's a lot of excitement. It really stems from, like you said, when you lock up those core players and your organization is showing like, hey, we want these guys to be around for a while because we believe in this core, right? We can move forward with these guys and be good. But, all the guys we have up now are great. We got Ke'Bryan Hayes, who's going to win a ton of Gold Gloves. Brian Reynolds. Henry Davis just came up. O'Neal Cruz is exciting. all these new signs as well. But, the way that I compare us to the Orioles is in, the people we're looking for, the pitchers that are coming up. The guy you're facing today is a perfect example, Jared Jones. He's nasty, dude. He had his first start, his MLB debut in Miami, struck out 10, sitting like 97, 99 on the fastball with a nasty slider. Fun to watch. And then you got Paul Skeens, just waiting in AAA. I think he's supposed to pitch today or tomorrow as well, so that's always fun to watch.
Steven, do you get a sense of what the plan is for Skeens this year? Are they going to be careful on innings to the point that he might not even make a major league debut this year?
I don't think so. I think that this team is pushing at this point to try to be successful now. And if that means that Skeens is ready to go and he's healthy and they feel that he's gotten enough, time acclimated to the professional schedule, I don't think there's any reason for him to wait. They've pushed up people quickly before that they believed in, especially the college age, draft guys. And Skeens is showing maturity. I mean, he's not just throwing 100 to 102 with an absolutely nasty slider and changeup. He commands really well. His first start in AAA, 5 strikeouts, no walks, no hits, just making people look silly. So when a guy's showing that kind of maturity, I think a team is more comfortable in moving him up. And I don't think they're going to have to wait very long to feel comfortable with where Skeens is like that. He's a major league pitcher, because they did that with Garrett Cole. They brought him up pretty quickly. So I don't think they're worried about it. They just want to make sure that he is ready. So, we'll see.
How much have you seen of Skeens, Steven?
I saw him in spring training throw a few, short innings and also throw live VPs. And then I've just, watched him go about his work and stuff. Man, he is a massive human being.
Yes, he is.
He reminds me, you guys got Jackson Holliday in AAA. So his dad, Matt Holliday, that's like a perfect comparison to Paul Skeens. Just a beast of a human. But the way he throws, it looks like he's barely tossing the ball, and it just absolutely jumps out of his hand. But he's dotting both sides of the plate at 100. That is just not even fair. And so, I've seen a decent amount. I obviously want to see a lot more. But the guy that's pitching today, Jared Jones, I've seen him a lot, and he looks great as well.
He is Stephen Brault. He's with us here on GCR as we get ready for Orioles-Pirates this weekend. Stephen, I'll make the comparison. The Orioles saw the Royals this week, and I was chatting with Rex Hudler the other day, and I said, the Royals remind me of the Orioles 2 years ago, like a team that you can see what's there and you can see what's coming, but probably not fully ready yet. The Pirates, on the other hand, as I keep looking at the roster and all of the pieces that they have, and particularly given how there doesn't appear to be anybody else in that division that's slated to run away with things, is it more like the Pirates could be the Orioles of last year, like the team that really is ready now, and people maybe just didn't realize that going into the season?
Well, that's always the fun part about this, right? Is when it's a smaller market team and you're trying to build that kind of organization from the ground up. You never know quite when it's going to work out, because what it takes is what the Orioles got, which is everybody playing out of their minds for the full season, and that's kind of what the Pirates are looking for so far. Yeah, that's been the case. And I will say the Pirates did a really good job of rounding out the roster with veteran guys. Rowdy Tellez is a solid hitting first baseman. He plays good first base too, but he's there to hit righties. They went and signed Michael A. Taylor, who's been fantastic this season so far. They went and got, Chapman, who's just now, the Pirates have 2 closers. There's not many teams in baseball that can say they have 2 true closers at the back of their bullpen. But it's a very well-rounded roster, which is why I like it so much. I think it can be that team with the Orioles. But really the beauty of it is if it's not this year, it will be next year or the year after. You know what I mean? They have the guys in the minor leagues, especially pitching in the minor leagues, that'll really propel this team if this isn't the year quite yet.
Steven, I want to go from off the field to the actual place that the Pirates play their home games. My favorite stadium by far is PNC Park. As a player there, did you ever get to really sort of experience what it's like design-wise? Did you pay attention to that? It seems like it is And I would urge Oriole fans, they play there, Saturday? What time is Saturday's game? Is that a night game? Or
4 o'clock.
It's
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, a great little trip, 4 hours up the road to Pittsburgh. At Stadium, your thoughts on PNC Park?
It just got voted, the best stadium in baseball by USA Today.
Well, they're wrong, but that's okay. It could be number 2.
Yeah, right. It is gorgeous. First of all, what everybody knows about it is the skyline. You can just go online and search PNC Park and see the beautiful skyline with downtown in the background and the Clemente Bridge and everything like that. But the field itself is also gorgeous. They just put in an absolutely massive screen out in left field, brand new. They added a bunch of things for fans to do. They added a bar out in the outfield. They added a bunch of kids stuff out in the outfield. It's so beautiful. But believe me, when I was there, I definitely knew. A lot of times, when I was living here, I stayed in downtown, and my journey to the field every day was a walk across the Clemente Bridge over to the field. And, oh, man, it was so nice. And I never took it for granted, I'll tell you that.
The other 2 pitchers that we're going to see this weekend, because the Orioles will miss Mitch Keller, but you already brought up Jared Jones. The other 2, Bailey Falter and Marco Gonzalez, probably not guys that are as well known amongst the casual fans. What will the Orioles be seeing in those 2 pitchers this weekend?
Yeah, Bailey Falter is a left-handed starter who's he struggled in spring training. His first start did not go well against the Marlins. But his kind of bugaboo sometimes will give up the home run. But he's all like a spin rate guy, right? So he throws that fastball at the top of the zone, and he throws a big curveball changeup slider. Just a classic lefty overhand thrower. And then Marco Gonzalez he was with the Mariners for a long time. You can look at his track record. He is a very solid veteran major league pitcher. Last year he had a tough year, but he was hurt pretty much the whole year, so he only got 10 starts. But years before that, you go look at his numbers, and he is basically at 30 starts with a 4 ERA every year. And, that kind of consistency is really nice. Another not hard-throwing lefty. Marco more relies on his changeup and cutter to get people out. But he's a guy that if you're not careful, all of a sudden, you're in the 7th inning, he's thrown 58 pitches and gotten 4 double plays. You know what I mean? He's that guy. So it's not quite the same. You'll see Jared Jones throwing 100, and then the next few days will be more softer throwing contact lefties.
I wanted to cover 2 other things with you, but I just wasn't told this, and I did not realize this. Chris just messaged me. Steve, you came back and you were playing with the Independent League team in Frederick last year?
I was playing as a position player we were the Frederick question mark.
Right.
We did not have a name
for
the first month or 2. And then we became the Spire City Ghost Hounds, which is actually really cool. But it was fun, man. It was a very big difference going from, Major League Baseball to indie ball in a year. But also going from playing as a pitcher my whole life professionally to being a position player. But I lived in Frederick for a whole summer. I loved it. I was only in Frederick the first time when I was with the Orioles for about a week. So it was kind of nice that I actually got to have my fill of Frederick, and I love that little town.
Yeah, it's a really neat place.
So pretty.
It was
fun, man.
Was it a Michael Jordan itch I've got to scratch thing to be a position player, or was it I want to see if maybe there could be a path to being back at the big? What was the thought process in doing that?
It was a combination of everything. Mostly, just to be honest with you, I just wasn't ready to retire yet.
Okay.
And the reason that I was out of Major League Baseball is because I tore my lat a few years ago, and it just never came back, right? So I've been rehabbing basically for 3 years. So it was time to call it quits, but I just wasn't ready. So I switched over to position player, and I had fun. I hit a few homers.
I was going to say the numbers. I just pulled up your number, 283, 327, 465 with 7 home runs.
What position did you play, Steven?
I played outfield, mostly
Outfield.
Right field.
Man.
I should have played first is what I should have done because that's my favorite position. But, I'm not a big guy, so I wasn't a first baseman.
Understood. I had 2 real quick things for you. Number 1, the Pirates broadcast team over the years, I think Bob Walk has been a member of the team, and Steve Blass was for a long, long time. Those guys played in Pittsburgh for a good, really long time. How did you develop the relationships to warrant them coming to you and saying, "Hey, we'd like you to be a part of the broadcast team"?
Oh, Steven, did we lose you there?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
we got you
Yep.
back.
Did you hear my question? I'm
saying-
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got you. I was just saying the entire time I was playing, I told everybody that would listen to me that I wanted to be a broadcaster when I was done playing.
That's cool.
'Cause
That's cool.
I knew that, playing baseball wasn't going to last forever, no matter how long it lasted. And this has always been a dream of mine, is to be able to kind of be a part of the game and, shoot out what's the team doing well, what they're doing poorly. But really, my goal is to actually eventually get to play-by-play. That is eventually what I want to do.
Wow.
But right now, this analyst job, it's cool, man. It's a lot of fun. Different.
Dude, there's not a lot of baseball players that really want to do
play-by-play.
play-by-play.
Yeah.
I guess Buck Martinez, right, does play-by-play, but there's not a ton of them.
Yeah, the Giants, the Kuiper and oh my gosh, I forget the other guy's name.
Mike Krukow.
There you go. Yeah. So they're both baseball players, and they have been doing that for 40-something years together now. That's kind of the dream, is to be able to be in a booth for a long time. But I mean, I want to do play-by-play because I like the idea of narrating the game.
Cool.
I've listened to baseball on radio and watched baseball games obsessively my entire life. And so I'd like to, be a part of that as I get older.
And before I ask my last question, it's obvious you want to be a broadcaster because you know that chicks love.
It's what they always say. The play-by-play
ex-player
guys get all the
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
they got rid of the chicks dig the long ball. That's not anymore. Broadcasters.
Hey, my last question for you, Derek Shelton. He's been there now, I think, like 5-6 years in Pittsburgh. Is he the right guy? Because a lot of times when a team is going through a long rebuild, they get to the point, where they're getting good, and they say, hey, let's bring in Buck Showalter, or let's bring in, somebody that's been around a long time. Is he the right guy to keep moving this thing forward in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that what you're looking at is more of the other side of that coin, which is a manager that comes in when the team is struggling and is there through that process with them, and is also there, during that buildup. He is a manager whose whole system is built on trust. He's very, very brutally honest. I can tell you that firsthand because he was my manager. And when you don't do something correctly, he will let you know.
Yep.
But he's a great guy. He's very baseball savvy, of course. But, he protects his team. I think the biggest thing with Shelton is that when you're around him, you feel like you can be honest, and you can tell him how you're feeling, and he's not going to necessarily, tell on you to the front office or anything like that. He's a player's manager. He really takes care of his players, and he gets the best out of a lot of players, I think. And I think you'll see that this year, like what we've already seen, is so many people taking similar approaches, on the mound, at the plate and everything, because Chelsea gets them to buy into like an idea. And I think the idea of the team this year is to be a full baseball team, completely well-rounded and competitive from pitch one every single game. And, it's worked out so far, obviously only 7 games in the season, but you like what you see. And, it's Brandon Hyde, right? With the Orioles, he was
Same thing,
when the Orioles were bad and now they're good. I feel like it's a similar kind of situation as they're looking for with Shelty.
Steven, you're a fascinating dude, man, and every layer. Like, we all knew you, the singer and the baseball player, but to come back, like a true renaissance.
He owes his entire career though to Dan Duquette, who traded him.
Got him to Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Got him to Pittsburgh and made it happen. Steven Brault, really enjoyed this. Would love to do it again, and perhaps the Orioles and Pirates could be playing some really big games, maybe down the road at some point in the next couple of years. Thanks for taking the time for us this morning. This was awesome.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Steven Brault, Pirates analyst. What a fascinating dude.
Yeah, very
really, really interesting cat.
Yeah.
Has recorded like 4 albums, is a singer.
It's funny to go back to that trade. It was an attempt to find a replacement for Nick Markakis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
Didn't quite work out.
Well, Nick Markakis, there was no way he was going to be able to play another 5 years. Yeah. There was no way that was going to be the. Hey, look, man, Dan Duquette got a lot of things right. I don't really want to pile on Dan Duquette. That particular offseason will go down as
I don't think he had a lot to
well,
do with it. In other words, I think that was
Um,
ordered on high.
I feel like he agreed with the medical assessment. If I remember correctly, he was okay and agreed with the medical assessment for Nick Markakis and thought. I think he's told us that he thought it was unlikely that Nick was going to be able to live out the contract that he was looking for at that moment.
That seems more like a Peter.
I know that's true, but I could have sworn that at some point I talked to Dan about that, and he said, like he said, look,
it is a very tough injury to come back from.
100%, right.
I had the same surgery.
Now we all know, like, the Chris Davis thing was not Dan Duquette at all.
Right.
Dan Duquette absolutely had no interest in signing Chris Davis to that contract. Right. By the way, you referenced the next print issue of Press Box. I'll be going over some of the moments of the Peter Angelos era in the 15th, the next print issue of Press Box. Good and bad, all of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad.
Just the baseball side. I'm not doing the life of Peter Angelos, just the baseball side of his ownership. And yes, obviously the Chris Davis contract comes up in there because that was sort of the last significant moment that we tie Peter to because he was so desirous, and it's just kind of ironic looking back on it that you appreciated the idea of being desirous of spending money on a baseball player.
I wanted them to sign Chris Davis, but my dollar figure was a lot less and a lot less years. Not a lot. I would have given him like a 5-year, 125, 130, something like that. But 7 years, 160, 170, whatever it was.
Too much. All right, hour number 1 of today's show. We're going to keep moving right along. It's also brought to you by Ruth's Chris. Who doesn't love Ruth's Chris? You can just hear the sizzle of the plate. You can smell that delicious steak just when you say the words Ruth's Chris. So whether you're just celebrating a night out, maybe a well-deserved date night, you want to entertain some clients the right way, or perhaps there's a milestone coming up, count on Ruth's Chris to deliver to you the finest steaks, the best service, and a level of hospitality that has made them one of the most revered names in steaks since 1965. Make your reservation right now at ruthschris.com. Earlier this week, Stan, we lost a legendary baseball figure and someone who was very important to the Baltimore Orioles and, of course, the creation of Camden Yards. And I know how fond you were of Larry Lucchino, and I know how fond everyone is of our next guest and how important their relationship was in making Camden Yards come to fruition. It is always a pleasure to be joined by an incredible figure in our sport and someone who we've talked about a lot, probably needs to have a place in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. She is the great Janet Marie Smith, and she is with us this morning here on GCR. Janet, it's Glenn. Stan the Fan Charles is with me this morning back here in Baltimore. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Sorry it's in these circumstances, but thank you for taking the time for us.
Well, I appreciate the call. Listen, you all saw Larry Lucchino's work firsthand, up close and personal, as they say. So I imagine I could turn that microphone around and be interviewing you too.
Janet, I just if you could take us back, right, like to how your relationship with Larry began, and when
how you got the first gig, working with Larry on Camden Yards.
Well, listen, I first met Larry Lucchino when he was president of the Orioles, and I interviewed with him to come and work on the project. And just to put it in context for the listeners who don't know, that was back in 1989, and I worked for him on and off several times, most notably the years he was at the Boston Red Sox overseeing the renovation of Fenway, and most recently the creation of the AAA park in Worcester for the Worcester Red Sox. So having worked with him over the span of 3 decades, it is nice to reflect back on that first meeting with him, and his stripes never changed. He was always tough. He was always challenging. He knew where he wanted to take things, and he was one of those rare people who both had vision and the tenacity and skill set to map out a path to make it happen. And I don't use that word vision lightly either. He really did have a vision.
Just so I understand the process, Janet Marie, and it's great to talk to you despite the circumstances. But is it a common thing for a ball club or an entity that's building something? It would seem to me like they'd hire the architects, and that's who that they would deal with. Was it sort of Larry's process to have somebody translate for him what his vision was? How did that come about?
It was, Stan, and that is exactly the word that he used when he hired me. He said, I know exactly what I want, but all of these drawings and models and things that I get from the architects, they're all beautiful because they're such a small scale, and I won't know whether it will translate into what I want until it's there, and then it's too late. And so my job for him was twofold. One was to figure out, how do you take this kind of abstract feeling that he had, that there was something special about the older ballparks. He had an emotional attachment to Ford Field, where he had grown up in Pittsburgh. And he noted with the business lens that the two smallest parks in the major leagues, Wrigley and Fenway, consistently had the highest attendance in the major leagues in spite of what was happening on the field. And so the business side of him is like, there must be something to the character of that park, the size of that park, that people are there, whether or not the team is any good this year. And so much of my job was to map out, starting with the planning and down to the graphics, how do you make that come alive? How do you make it real and translate that in a way that we would have a credible seat at the table in working with the Maryland Stadium Authority and with HOK Sport, now known as Populous. And then the other part of my job was to corral all the talent that we could, ideas that we could, and synthesize them so that we gave clarity to how the building needed to operate, which meant working with all of the departments, working with Frank Robinson, our manager, working with the city's transportation department, et cetera. I mean, he was very astute at how he approached things. And Larry Lucchino really felt everybody had a voice and it deserved to be heard. And he really welcomed the chance to deploy us to go speak to anyone from the Chamber of Commerce to the Boy Scout troop to see what ideas people had and to try and figure out how to make certain that we were really building something that would resonate with our fan base.
It's really special.
Along those same lines, Janet, as you know, my brother used to do the advertising for the Orioles, and he would get to sit in, Alan Charles of TVC, he would get to sit in on some board meetings. Larry put together a board that was incredibly powerful, smart people. He always wanted to surround himself with smart people.
He did, and he always liked to be challenged too. I mean, people sometimes refer to his combative side, but it's because he enjoyed the banter. He wanted to be challenged. He didn't want to be surrounded by yes people. He didn't want to be surrounded by head scratching people. He enjoyed both the intellectual challenge and just the sheer how do you get it done, the logistical challenges that came after that. And don't think for a minute, no matter what your brother might be telling you, he was just doing PR, because Larry really counted on people to help with strategy. How do you think about positioning this ballpark, this club, this city, and what were we trying to achieve? And it was very challenging. We look at Camden Yards today and think, yep, it started a whole new wave of thinking about Major League Baseball parks. But if you can imagine sitting in those rooms when everybody else is still building, it's not a round park, a boomerang-shaped thing.
Yep.
And when going out to the suburbs where it was easy to get to a place by car and land was cheap, and all those were norms. It makes it really phenomenal that we had the combination of Larry Lucchino and William Donald Schaefer. And I really do think it's hard to imagine Camden Yards without the two of them, because Schaefer's insistence on the urbanity of the building really gave meaning to Larry's goal of having something that was could be nestled into the city.
Janet Marie Smith is with us here on GCR as we're celebrating the life and the legacy of former Orioles president Larry Lucchino. Janet, if I could, because you as the artist, deservedly, we of course we credit you and we know how important it was. But beyond just the vision, how important was your relationship with Larry and the trust that you had in making this this kind of dream come together for this historic ballpark?
Well, I don't know if Larry ever really trusted me. He was always questioning, and I think that was the definition of the relationship, was that he expected me to be able to defend whatever I was recommending, and I think had I been intimidated by the approach, it wouldn't have worked. But what he liked about my background was that it wasn't conventional. I did not come from sports. I came from urban planning, city planning, public spaces. How do you build a city? And that isn't just about the architecture. It's about a strategy for how do you think about how people use a space? How do you maintain a space? How do you give it longevity? How do you make it timeless? And his feeling was, look, I've got the sports experts already in the room. How do I convey to them that this is more than just baseball? It's more than just a building to host a sport. And so I of course, it's one always feels flattered and honored when you're asked to do something, but I understood that he expected me to challenge the norm, that he was giving me the permission to do that. That defines our relationship. Even our time together at Polar Park 3 decades later, he never stopped questioning. So how do we approach it? Was this the right thing to do? Should this little sidetrack on Polar Park, it's carved into a hillside, so it's got a big retaining wall in the outfield. And there was a lot of talk, well, should we mimic Fenway? Should it be something like the Green Monster? Should it be Worcester's version of the Green Monster? And there was, and yet that would have fought the topography. And Larry would expect me to defend that point, that we're here to weave it into this city and this district and make it work, not to build a Disney version of Fenway 45 miles west. But that wasn't a casual thing. Like, that was a debate. And that's what he expected, was to have a debate about it. And even when he believed in something himself, he would often lob the question out as something to hear both sides of something. Even if he already had his mind made up, so to speak, he still wanted to know that he could defend that position by hearing what the contrary point of view was.
It's interesting when you say that he always sought opinions. I'll never forget, because I'd been doing talk radio then for 5-6 years, and I was still pretty young. And to me, it was just great that we were going to draw a lot of people. And I remember him coming up to batting practice one day. This must have been the year before the stadium opened. And he asked a bunch of us writers, he goes, do you think it's okay to sell out a whole season of tickets before the season begins?
Wow.
And it was just an interesting thought to me, because to me it was like,
yeah, it sounds like a good thing, right?
That's a great thing. And he was saying you really need to sort of not shut everybody out of being able to get the experience of that. And I just thought it was such a smart thing to explore and look for consensus on.
No, you're right. This again, these seem like such funny things to talk about so many years later, because they're the norm today. But the idea of having these casual areas in the outfield where you weren't sitting in a seat, that you had standing room, that you were just hanging out, was such an anathema to the way stadiums were being built in the late 80s when this was on the drawing boards. And yet he cared very much about both that and keeping a certain number of tickets available for sale game day. You know, he thought it was really important for growing the fan base to feel like you could wake up in the morning and think, today is the day I'm going to play hooky. And I got a chance to get that ticket. And this was, long before StubHub and the internet, et cetera. But, the idea that you could go down the ballpark and, be one of the first 50 people in line and get that ticket and walk right through the gates was an idea that he felt was really important to make it accessible and make the idea of baseball accessible to people without making financial or scheduling commitments way ahead of time.
I just wanted to touch on Fenway for a moment. And I know you're not from Boston, or you hadn't spent a lot of time there, but I'm sure you ended up spending quite a bit of time there. Was the discussion there internally amongst Larry and his partners and the city, like, do we keep Fenway or do we find something new? Was it ever discussed, the idea of moving on from Fenway, or did Larry and his partners always take the approach, we want Fenway to stay, we got to figure out how to make it more modern?
It was the latter. Larry Lucchino, John Henry, and Tom Warner bought the club in late 2001 and were the only group that committed to keeping Fenway when they bid on the club. Everyone else was looking to build something new.
Yeah.
But did Larry go in and say that from the beginning? He said from the beginning that was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
But whether, only he will know how much of his rhetoric was real, but he would often ask audiences, what do you think? He was careful not to make a promise he couldn't keep. So even as we did improvements at Fenway the first few years, we made certain they would all pencil out within a 5-year period, so that the logic being, look, even if we were to build a new ballpark, it's going to be 5 years in the planning. So why live in squalor? Let's go ahead and invest in this building. It'll be a litmus test to see if a multi-year renovation will work. It'll be a litmus test to see how fans react to making things modern and different, including things like the seats on top of the Green Monster, and adding, the advertising and the sponsorship to Fenway. And so he was very careful and strategic in the approach, but the goal was always to save Fenway. And again, Larry's business mind was super keen. These weren't obviously just sentimental decisions. He recognized that the previous ownership had spent over 10 years trying to put together the funding and a site for a new ballpark and had made no tangible progress. So why assume that things are going to be different for you? They might be, but there was a reality that he was always pushing for the possible, not the impossible.
Yeah. At what point do you think that they made the full-fledged commitment? Was it after about 4 or 5 years of doing some, redos on certain areas of the ballpark that they made the commitment? Yeah.
If you had Dr. Charles Steinberg instead of me on this show, he'd be able to tell you the exact date and the
time
hour.
And time, right?
He would, and there is an answer to that, but I don't have it in my head.
Okay.
I want to say it was about 2005. It was 2 or 3 years into these annual improvements that we were doing, and the announcement about staying at Fenway coincided with an application to put the building on the National Historic Register, which was an important and public act. We knew once we made that application that there would be a confidence in the public that was the goal. So it coincided with an announcement for that. But we'd also by then been at Fenway Park long enough that we could see the difference that it would make to do these improvements, both in terms of the fan experience and the financial bonus of it.
Jen, we could sit here and listen to you talk about these stories for hours. I got to tell you, this has been a joy and a delight. I heard that you were in Pittsburgh today for opening day.
Yes, I am.
Stan was almost blasphemous a few minutes ago because we had Stephen Brault, who's one of their broadcasters, on now, and they were going on about how maybe PNC Park might be the best ballpark in baseball.
That park. I love
and
it.
I don't want to hear those words, but I do know, and I've been, and it is beautiful. It is gorgeous. As someone who knows a thing or two about this, how impressed have you been over the years of what they've done there in Pittsburgh?
Well, I have, I got to qualify my statement by telling you I've had the joy of working for Bob Nutting and Travis Williams, the owner and president of the Pirates, the last 3 years on some improvements to PNC Park. So I can't help but be biased. And I also have the benefit of time, because I remember when the planners of Pittsburgh, truly the city planners in Pittsburgh, and the then owner of the Pirates came to Camden Yards when it was still new, looking for what were the ingredients that had made Camden Yards so successful and popular. And I have really valued what has been done in Pittsburgh, not just with PNC Park, but the way it's been used to jumpstart development on the North Shore. And while I will probably have to find some neutral colors to wear out there today, it's super exciting that the Orioles are opening or here for the home opener for the Pirates.
Hey, Janet Marie, let me just ask you one question. We know what John Angelos was attempting to do. David Rubenstein is now the owner of the ball club. He's got two former mayors, both pretty powerful guys, in Kurt Schmoke and Michael Bloomberg. Do you think that there'll be something that they can do with the area surrounding Camden Yards, say within the next 5-6 years, that something meaningful can be designed and incorporated into, say, that corridor down Utah Street?
Sure, absolutely. And I guess, to me, it would be an important part of Larry Lucchino's legacy to see that completed.
Yep.
If you think back to when Camden Yards opened in '92, there were surface parking lots all on the north side of the park, and it was cited in order to encourage downtown development. So say what you will about the Convention Center and the Hilton, which are both sort of behemoth buildings, that took up a good chunk of that. There are also some nice, residential, like the Zenith apartment building, that were built on what was then surface parking. So the city has developed all of their lots. It's the state-owned property that is still in the hands of really not just the Stadium Authority, but it's going to require both the Ravens and the Orioles to think differently about how you get to both of those buildings. And it's no accident that it's right there next to light rail and the MARC trains and transit. And hopefully, as our city matures, that we'll have more confidence in our mass transit, rely on it more, and that will allow more development to occur.
Boy, we got a lot of work to do in that department, Jan. That's the only. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, but there is a lot of work to go there.
Well, listen, let me give you an example, though, real quick before we sign off, because it's germane to your questions about Larry Lucchino.
Mm-hmm.
The work he did with the Padres in San Diego is so notable for what it did for downtown San Diego. And and that is that project, which is another one I worked on with Larry. What's interesting there is that the city of San Diego gave the Padres not only the rights, but the responsibility and obligation to develop that property. And when you go to Petco Park today, the energy around it is just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And yet that was created by the ball club. And what I think is so impressive about it is if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. It feels like a natural extension of the city. And I hope for the same for Baltimore.
Well, we hope you're involved in
1,000%
in
in anything that our city does, frankly. Janet Marie Smith, it's always a pleasure, and particularly hearing you tell the stories about your relationship with Larry Lucchino. Thank you for spending the time with us this morning, and we hope to chat with you again real soon.
Nice to speak with you both. Thanks for having me.
Great to catch up, Janet. Okay.
The great Janet Marie Smith was with us here on GCR. Appreciate John Keller. Janet Marie is a national treasure, a vital part of the creation of Camden Yards and beyond with Larry Lucchino.
Yeah.
There's no question about any of those things. Look, you and I continue to talk about what she just said there. Agreed, and I've said over and over again, whatever your feelings are about John Angelos, the idea of bickering about the concept of something that would get more people downtown is crazy to me.
Right.
Like, I'll never get the pushback towards the idea of the ballpark village. That is, to me, in theory, a very good thing for the city of Baltimore. You mean to tell me that there will be more people on any given night where there isn't a baseball game and throughout the course of the year that would have reason to be downtown? Yes, that's a good thing. Now, again, as you and I have talked about over and over again, it's not as in practicality, it's simple.
Yeah.
In actual theory, it becomes more difficult. And we've talked about various ways that it could be done. Janet's point is it might require more dependence on public transportation, and unfortunately, everyone who knows anything about public transportation in this state would say, yeah, we're out. We're out when that becomes the conversation, because it has not worked at the level that we have needed it to work to be a truly great metropolitan area. And anybody that's hearing this that wants to be angry about it can be angry about it. We got to call it the way it is. The public transportation in our region sucks. Period, plain and simple, almost to the point of unusable. And I get it. I like the leaders in this area, but I can't BS that. It sucks. It's dreadful. It's unusable for the most part. So if this is where we're going, then it needs to include an upgrade, a massive, an overwhelming upgrade when it comes to the concept of public transportation. Almost a completely new vision for the concept of public transportation. And I get it. There have been good concepts that have been put out there, and we can get into the red line and I'm not saying it's the fault of the current governor who's been on the job for like a couple of days, or
Well, I'm not prepared to go all into that. I mean, the ball club used to draw well over 3 million fans
100%,
before the Nationals came into the picture.
Yes.
And the team went to hell basically on the field.
Yes.
So I think it's doable. Something's doable without it's got to be multi-billion dollars to upgrade our mass transit system.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't see that happening.
I don't know that I see it happening either. Yeah. And that's part of the fear that I have about this, is that you've fallen so far behind in that department that
I think it has more to do with people's feelings of unsafe.
No doubt
being unsafe going to the city.
I understand that, and I do think that having more things downtown goes a long way to trying to help with that thought process, right?
But given all the years that stadium's been open, what she was talking about out in San Diego at Petco Park, the neighborhood. What did we have down at Camden Yards? You had pickles and sliders.
Right, that was it.
That was it.
That was it.
There was no feeling of like, hey, come on down to the area,
right,
and hang out before and after games.
No.
You drive. I leave 25, 30 minutes after a game, and there's like 20, 30 people outside sliders and pickles. You know, that's it. And you go to a game in Denver at Coors Field, it's.
I saw this. I went
Seattle,
to a game. I went to a game in Cincinnati not that long ago, and I felt that. I was like, wow, everybody is just here hanging, and for blocks.
Right.
Like the impact of it is you'll go blocks where you will still see thousands of people congregating after a Saturday night game.
Right.
That's what I was there for, was a Saturday night. And so at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, there's red and this wasn't even a good Reds team. This was like Jesse Winker. No, it was somebody more random than that. Maybe maybe it was
Derek
Jesse
Dietrich?
Winker. No, it might have been Jesse Winker bobblehead night. Like where but they're everywhere.
I want that bobblehead.
Oh, it was in the studio for a while. I think we gave it to an intern because it just kept sitting in the studio for forever. I was like, I can't get rid of this thing. Nobody wants it. It was a Patrick Stevens special. He was like, let's go out to Ohio for a couple of games this weekend. There's a Jim Thome. The Orioles are playing the then Indians on a Sunday in Cleveland. There was a Jim Thome bobblehead that day. Nice of the Indians to or the Guardians now to recognize an Orioles legend. I did appreciate that. And then there was a bobblehead night in Cincinnati the night before. So he's like, we'll stay in Columbus. We'll go to the Cincinnati game on Saturday. And he also he suckered me in because he knew the
I was never invited on those.
Well, it was very unique.
Thankfully.
The ATP tour was in Cincinnati that weekend as well. So I spent my Saturday afternoon watching Novak Djokovic and
just gave you an offer you couldn't refuse. So you had to go.
He really and he would talk to me about these baseball trips all the time. Like Patrick's a bobblehead collector, and I would pass on a lot of them. He really suckered me in on the tennis tour is there that weekend. I'm like, damn it, Patrick. All right, fine, you got me. I'm in. Let's do it. Let's go. All right, Stan is here. Boy, this is our first commercial. It's fine. We'll make it all happen in this hour. Today's show is brought to you by Stan the Fan. Ooh. In fact, Stan and Eric got together last night, and you can watch that right now. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports.
Talked a lot about prospects.
I would imagine there's a lot to talk about. YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. PressBoxOnline.com/video, and then on Monday, Stan, Ross, and Luke will be back together as well. When we come back in, you all right?
I just wanted to say you can see a lot of the video that Eric shoots down there in Florida of prospects at Eric_Birdland.
There you go. Check it out there. We are going to bring back an old segment when we come back in.
We are?
Yes. I watch the Orioles.
Karnak the Magnificent?
Not that one. Not that old. Not that old.
Stupid pet trick?
No, not that old either. This weekend, the rest of baseball. I don't watch the rest of baseball the way that these two guys do. I watch the Orioles. That's what I watch. So I miss things that are going on, storylines, guys that are finding success. So we're going to task Griffin with getting us caught up, and then, of course, Stan probably knows even more than Griffin does. So Griffin will prepare the segment, and then Stan will run with it. That's the way that it'll go. This week in the rest of baseball, next on Glenn Clark Radio.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Whether you're celebrating a special milestone, entertaining clients, or simply enjoying a night out, count on Ruth's Chris to deliver you the finest steaks, the best service, and a level of hospitality that has made Ruth's Chris one of the most revered names in steaks since 1965. Make your reservation now at ruthschris.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover we look at the promise of spring for the Baltimore Orioles as Todd Karpovich and others shine the light on the team's hopes to take the next step towards championship contention and what reinforcements could still be coming. Plus, Pressbox personalities offer suggestions to David Rubenstein about stewarding the franchise. Also inside, Bo Smolka on how the Ravens defense could evolve with new coordinator Zach Orr. And we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's programs across the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Friday edition of the program. A quick shout out, we did our bracket contest this year and raised $500 for Show Your Soft Side. We timed that up with Show Your Soft Side does this annual event called Project Runway, and it was an honor to be a part of that last night along with Ronnie Stanley and Eric DaCosta and Lacey DaCosta, and Malik Ham came out this year, Baltimore's own. And the total that was raised to help animals in our community, $260,000.
That's fantastic.
On top of all the adoptions that occurred last night of the animals there. So had an amazing night.
Is it all dogs and cats?
All dogs and cats, yep. Had an amazing night.
No pythons?
No, not there.
No.
Not that they're opposed to the adoption of pythons.
Right.
I want to make that abundantly clear. It's not like they're working against the adoption of
How about,
pythons.
alligators?
Are you
Were
looking
there
for a
any
python?
alligator?
Bit too much. Bit too much. Yeah, Stan, is
I
that
love these stories when you read
it's
these random
wild.
stories. Like
Wild.
New York Health Department came and had to capture.
Yeah.
an
Yeah. Well,
like a
unfortunately,
12
some of those stories have hit a little close to home over
Yeah.
the years, right? What was it?
At your house?
Not in my house.
Oh.
No. What was the? Who was the? Was it Terrence Cody that had like a? Yeah. Guy, what are you doing? Like, what is going on there? But no, it was truly an amazing evening, and all these folks who just come give of their time for no reason at all to try to help these animals get adopted. So appreciate you guys getting in on a bracket contest.
Lacey and Eric are very involved.
This
with
was
that?
their first year being
Okay.
involved, and in fact, the Ravens as a team ended up picking up the adoption fees for all of the animals that got
That's
adopted
great.
last night, which was a wonderful.
Great.
That was spearheaded by Eric DaCosta. I don't know if he wanted that to be whatever,
No, it's out there now.
Sorry, Eric. I think Torrey Smith said something about that, so I don't feel quite as bad about it. Eric spearheaded.
Was he there last night, Tori?
Yep, Torrey was there last night. It was great to see Nick Boyle back. One of my favorites was back. But, yeah, Eric really spearheaded wanting the Ravens as a team to be involved. And in the past, Torrey and Ryan Jensen, the former Raven, were co-chairs of the event, and they would just personally pay all the adoption fees for the animals. And then Eric said, we'd like to step in, and we'd like to do it. And so that was a really, really neat moment, and appreciate them. But appreciate all of you who got into the bracket contest, because $500 of that $260,000 raised came from GCR listeners. So thank you very much. All right, it's time for us to do this.
This week
In the rest of
baseball.
This week and the rest of baseball is back, and it's brought to you by Sports and Social. That's where Griffin and I will be tomorrow night. We're going to be hanging out with you, watching the national semifinals. Purdue, NC State, UConn, Alabama. Come hang out with us. It is the best place to watch. I mean, it's just such a cool spot for watching games. But on top of that, Griffin's going to try to help you win some money betting the games. And we're going to have some great giveaways during timeouts. We're going to have some grand prizes as well as just some swag to give away. We'll play some trivia during timeouts. And on top of that, Sports and Social will have a live DJ and cheerleaders. I have not yet been told if they're expecting us to be dressed as cheerleaders as well. I haven't gotten to the bottom of that, but you do anything for the cause. That's
Right,
what I
okay.
would say. So we'll be there tomorrow night. Sports and Social, come hang out with us. It is the best place to watch the games for the national semifinals. Looking forward to being there tomorrow night. All right, Griffin, where are we starting?
I guess we'll start at the beginning of the week when Ronel Blanco threw a no-hitter for the Houston Astros.
Sure did.
In only his 8th career start. He's 30 years old. It was only his 8th career start across all of professional baseball because he played in, I think, the Mexican League for a little bit. And he had never had a pitching appearance, I think, go more than 6 innings. He had never gotten through of those 7 previous starts, he hadn't gotten through a single start without allowing a home run, let alone a hit. So, lo and behold, he goes in a complete game.
I was trying to think of who's the
Jays.
most random modern no-hitter to be thrown. Who was the cat in St. Louis? Was that Bud Smith who threw a no-hitter? Was that?
Remember the guy with the White Sox, Philip Humber?
Philip Humber.
Philip
That was a good
Humber,
one.
100%, and utterly random.
That was a perfect game, wasn't it?
Was it a perfect game?
Philip Humber, I think, was a perfect game.
You think of the fact Mike Messina never got to throw a no-hitter. Flirted with it about 1 billion times in his life.
Yeah.
I mean, got into the 8th inning of a no-hitter at least 4 times. Never got to finish a no-hitter. Philip Humber.
Is that the most recent perfect game, too? There's been 21 or 22 perfect games.
I don't remember if that was the most recent one. Hang on a second. The most recent. Well, it should have been John Means.
Yeah, you're right.
Son of
you're
a
right.
bitch.
You're right.
No, Domingo Herman. Actually,
okay.
it's not
This
even
was
close.
a perfect game, wasn't it? Domingo
Yeah,
Germán?
Herman was a
Yeah.
perfect game. Felix Hernandez threw a perfect game in
That's right,
2012, and so did Matt. Actually, all of those were in 2012. There were 3 perfect games in 2012. Humber, Matt Cain, and Felix Hernandez, all in 2012.
Yeah, I remember being 12 years old. I was like, wow, is this even...
Yeah, is that even all that impressive, right? Everybody's doing it. But yeah, the list of random pitchers that have managed to throw a no-hitter when some of the icons of the game were never able to pull it off reminds you there's obviously an anomaly factor in throwing it at some point. Like that, yes. How many times did Nolan Ryan throw a no-hitter?
7.
7? Yeah. Clearly, that wasn't an anomaly, right? Like Nolan Ryan was just that good. But for some of these guys, it's just a wild anomaly about the particular night, the particular team they faced, whatever it was. And I would assume that's the story. I don't think this is going to be Blanco's move into being the most dominant pitcher in the American League.
Maybe there
He
is.
is a member of Route 66.
Oh, well then,
okay, so this
actually,
is kinda-
sorry,
so I
it's
should-
probably going to be all
I
downhill
should just
from
go ahead
here.
and drop him for my fantasy team, I guess.
Bailey Ober. Thank you, Bailey.
Since June of 2022, there have been 7 no-hitters. The Astros have 4 of them.
That's crazy.
So
right?
the rest of baseball has 3 no-hitters. The Astros have 4 since
really
June
nice.
of 2022.
Were they all at home?
Have they all been at home? No, didn't they? Did they have? Was one of the combined ones at Yankee Stadium? Was that?
Oh, that might
if I
be
remember
right.
that right.
That might be
correctly.
right.
Yeah.
That might be the case.
He also threw in the pitch clock era the first no-hitter with a pitch clock violation. The first pitch of the game, or no, I don't know if it was the first pitch of the game, but against Dalton Varsho, he took a pitch clock violation in the first inning of the game, and so first no with a pitch clock violation in the history of baseball. So
Interesting.
I guess if you say so, it's interesting.
And Dalton
It's definitely
Varsho
happened.
also on Route 66.
Oh.
How about that?
Is that serendipity?
It does seem like serendipity.
And then earlier, then also that same night, a Maryland native hit his first career home run.
That's right.
To share this experience with each other because they are best friends.
Merrill to left. His first big league home run.
Of course, Severna Park's own Jackson Merrill. Really great kid from a really great family.
A very casual call, wasn't it? It was like,
Well,
like
they were in the middle of an
talking-
interview,
yeah.
I guess, is
Yeah.
what kind of screwed that up,
Okay.
right? Was that there was an awkward timing for it.
I didn't really hear that.
Well, he got it in there, I think. Yeah.
One of the
But
weird parts about this. So
San Diego Padres TV network.
it's remarkable this young man got to the major leagues at 20 years old. What's maybe more remarkable is he did it coming from a public school, as he went to Severna Park High School, not to one of the bigger private schools. Now, perhaps the reason why that's not as remarkable as you might think, I had totally forgotten about this. Do you know who the baseball coach is at Severna Park?
Back when Jackson Merrill played?
I believe he's still the coach there.
Don't know.
Stevie Johnson. I don't know.
No, not Steve
Yeah, no.
Johnson, of course, but a former major leaguer,
Oh.
a former pitcher,
So we should know this.
a former University of Maryland pitcher. Eric Milton is the
Eric Milton
baseball
is the
coach
coach, yeah.
at Severna Park.
Played
So
for the Minnesota Twins.
100% was a very good pitcher in his career. Was an outstanding high
Injury
level.
plagued, I think.
Yeah, I would still say he was a multiple time All-Star, right?
maybe once or twice.
Let's see. And now we're going to find out he didn't make one. Only once in 2001, which, of course, we know was in Seattle.
He was good.
He also threw a no-hitter in 1999. So look at how this all ties together, which goes a long way to explaining why Jackson Merrill was not in a rush to leave the Severna Park program in order to get to one of the bigger private schools, because he felt like the coaching at Severna Park was
pretty good.
Yeah, pretty
good.
Getting really emotional about the finale being Sunday night. Not okay.
I'm very bummed.
Yeah, real bummer.
But yeah, it's just a week. So Jackson Churio also hit his first. So a week of young Jacksons hitting their first career.
Should have been all of them.
Yeah, should have been all. Also on Tuesday night, Bryce Harper went into Tuesday night. He was 0 for 12 on the year. Ended up getting 3 hits, though, to break that little spell. All 3 of those were home runs.
It's a good way to bust out of a That's a decent way to.
And his third home run was a grand slam as well. And so Bryce Harper, I was getting worried as well because he was on my fantasy team.
Well, he's been eating something that Kyle Stowers has been
eating. Right. These guys.
The Marlins now.
I believe they say Bryce Harper is the Kyle Stowers of the National League. I think is what they've been saying recently.
They've been saying that for years.
Right.
Marlins 0-8 start. This comes from Christina De Nicola. The Marlins are the first team to drop 8 in a row to begin the season, start the season 0-8 since 2016. When do you want to guess the teams that went 0-8 to start that year?
2016?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't the Orioles. That was the year they were good.
Yeah, the Orioles were okay that year.
So let's try the Tigers. No, they were still pretty good at that point.
Kansas City.
No,
Kansas City was.
They were still pretty good.
There
at
were 2 teams
point.
that went 0-8 to start.
Maybe the Padres because it was before their turnaround.
The Padres. One of them was an NL or an AL Central team.
AL Central team.
And the Detroit Tigers.
No.
No,
not the Tigers.
There's not one that's obvious to me there.
They're all capable.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Yeah.
We're just going to name them. Minnesota
Twins, who went on to win 59 games that year.
That was our 12th guess.
And then from the National League,
the 2016, the Marlins.
Not the Marlins.
Give us the division.
That's the correct division. The NL East team, not the Marlins, though.
The Mets?
Not the Mets.
Phillies?
Nope.
Atlanta
started 0-8 that year, and they only won 68 games. So
we just so associate Atlanta with being good that it's hard to remember there was a little dip there.
So not a good omen as the Braves won 68 games that year. The Twins won 59.
Great.
So the
Braves only won 68 games in 2016.
Correct. That is correct. And then finally, the Mets, before picking up their first win of the season in Game 2.
And Julio Teheran.
Julio Teheran wasn't part of it.
But they did pick up Julio Teheran.
So maybe he gets the good luck
might be
that
the
they
moment.
needed. They started 0-5 for the first time, not for the first, but their opening day payroll. They had the largest payroll of a team to ever start 0-5. The 2024 Mets, $322 million, started 0-5. Do you want to try to guess the other teams? The largest payroll with over $100 million on their opening day payroll to start 0-5.
Ever?
Yeah.
That's the. I don't know, man.
2011 and the Boston Red Sox 163. Okay. So the Mets broke that record. Fortunately,
congratulations
for the Red Sox. The 2008 Tigers 137 million, and then the 2016 Twins that we just talked about also 105 million.
Who was on the 2016 Twins roster that they were paying 105 million?
Games
yeah. How?
And then in 2005, the Mets as well also had $100 million on their payroll on opening day.
All right, really quickly, while you look that up, let's go over the teams that have 2 losses or fewer and where we are as far as our belief in them, right? Like whether or not we might. So the Braves, obviously, they're sitting at 3-2. I think everybody believes in the Braves. We don't need to have that conversation. We talked about them earlier. The Pirates, 6-1 to start the season. You bring up that their schedule has been quite favorable as they face the Marlins and the Nationals.
In Washington. Yeah.
But they also have
they've got something going on there. And this division is not real strong.
You say that. They're all 500 or better right now.
But there's a lot of room for the Pirates to hang in this thing, I believe. I think Cincinnati has the most talent in that division if they get the pitching. But the Pirates are a fast mover.
Coming into the season, did not know enough about Jared Jones, who's starting today for Pittsburgh.
About him, yeah.
And so that, to me, the idea that they have 2 guys that they trust, obviously everybody trusts Mitch Keller at the top of the rotation, But that goes a long way, and with the other option being that at some point this season we could see Paul Skeens, and so they could be really interesting to me.
Very much so.
The Brewers are also 4-1 to start.
Remember last year they lost. Remember they got off to a good start last year.
Yep.
But I think it was like the second or third game of the year last year. They lost their shortstop, O'Neal Cruz, for the entire season.
Did you guys realize how big O'Neal Cruz is?
Yeah, I mean, he's like Cal Ripken.
He's massive, man. It is crazy.
Yeah. And when you look at exit velocities, he's always at the top of the list, you know.
O'Neal Cruz, I'm trying to see what he's listed as. He's listed at 6'7", and it feels like that's selling him short somehow. Like when you see him, you're just like, Jesus, that is a big dude. The Brewers are 4-1 to start the season. What do you make of that?
I'm not buying it.
Okay.
I'm not buying the Brewers. But then again, I had the Brewers 28th on my power rankings to start the season. And I had the Guardians at like 26th or something like that.
We'll get to them.
Yep.
The Cubs are 4-2 to start the season.
Interesting team. I just don't see a there just yet.
Okay.
You know.
The Yankees are 6-1. I think we all buy into that. You brought it up earlier. The Red Sox are 5-2 to start the season, and you're starting to believe in that a little bit.
I'm impressed with the arms. I know that the Orioles tried to sign Andrew Bailey as a pitching coach, trying to steal him from the A's, and Boston got him because he has a previous relationship with Breslow, Craig Breslow,
yeah.
The new president of baseball ops for the Red Sox. They've got really good arms in that. You know, it's not like a Chris Sale that you could say he's a star.
It's so funny you say that because we had Will Middlebrooks on during spring training because he was raving about the Orioles one day on his podcast, but he, of course, works for Nesson.
Right.
And we were talking about it, and he was going on about how badly they needed to go get the deal done with Jordan Montgomery. He's like, look, man, these arms are fine, but they need like a guy. They need that type of guy. And to your point, like you look at the rotation, you're like, I'd probably take any of these guys.
Yeah, I would take any of those guys. I think Tanner Houck and Brayan Bello and Pivetta are all real good. If Whitlock can stay healthy, he's real good. And then Cutter Crawford really developed last year. He might be a sneak. I think they're a sneaky team this year.
You mentioned in the Central, the Cleveland Guardians are 6-2 to start the season.
Yeah, off to a great start. I just looked at that outfield.
Would really hurt the Orioles' trade partner prospects here. We could really
they still need offense, but they got Stephen Kwan in left field. They've got Will Brennan, and Tyler Freeman and Estevan Florial like center, and Ramon Laurio. If there's 30 home runs between those 5-6 players, I mean their outfield is abysmally weak.
Yeah, but Laureano's got a hell of an arm. I mean, he does. He's got that going for him.
You're talking about a right fielder. That's usually a position.
Yes, you need to have production. I agree with that.
You need to get some home runs somewhere.
They get a little bit more from. Boy, they had like a record. Didn't they have some sort of record for home run futility a year ago? Do I remember that being
the Twins?
No, the Guardians.
Yeah,
the Guardians.
Sorry,
the Guardians.
I was talking about the 2016 Twins.
You're obsessed with that. No, the Guardians set some sort of.
I don't know what the lack of home runs.
Yes, I don't remember exactly what the record was, but they set some sort of record, or they were flirting with it during the course of the year. The Tigers are off to a 5-1 start. How much do you buy into that?
I think the Tigers are an interesting team. I had them like at 16th in my power rankings, and I had the Royals, I think, 17th. I'm impressed with both of those young teams. The Tigers are coming pretty fast. I think the Tigers and the Pirates
There's
kind
some
of
similarities there. And again, I like the Royals. I just think they're the Orioles of 2 years ago, right? They're the team that I still think could take a jump this season. And we saw that, obviously. Look, they got off the lead. They got off the leads in every game against the Orioles this week. They run. It's nuts.
And then they run some more.
100%. They are running. They're Forrest Gump. Wherever we're going, we are running. I just don't think that they have quite enough yet to make a breakthrough. I just think that they're ready to make a jump this season with all of that young talent.
I think a lot will depend on their bullpen.
Sure.
You know, and they went out and did something smart. They got Will Smith, who who's like, what was that football player that you talked about?
No, Frank Ragnow,
Yeah. You just win with him. He's played on, what, 3 consecutive...
Well, not the other night they didn't.
3 consecutive World Series,
yep.
right?
It's
for
crazy.
3 different
It's
teams.
crazy,
That's
man.
great. I don't think they're ready for the World Series, but if he has a big year or MacArthur develops or Chris Stratton, they could be tough. They've got an interesting ball club, and Bobby Witt is just sensational.
Rangers are 4-2. We're all good with them. And then I guess hold player meetings all the time because the Angels went from looking lifeless. I mean, lifeless through the first 2 games of the season and now being 4-2. Do you buy into anything about the Angels?
The only thing I buy into the Angels is I really like Ron Washington, except that he's killed me by playing Miguel Sano over Luis Rengifo.
Yeah.
But aside from that mistake, which he'll catch up on, and it really does look awfully doubtful that Anthony Rendon will really ever produce anything there. He looks dreadful.
Awful. Totally lost.
I'm not buying this whole thing where he came out and said that, hey, baseball's
I
my
don't
job.
I don't like baseball.
I don't really
right?
like. I'm not buying that. The guy's had terrible luck.
Well,
with
I still think it was a dumb thing for him to say.
It was a dumb thing to say,
yes.
but that doesn't mean he really believed it.
Right. All right, that was this week in the rest of base. Oh, you found the
Joe Mauer was making $23 million. That year.
But at the tail end at that point.
Yes, Irvin Santana, Ricky Nolasco were both making $12.5 million in the rotation. Phil Hughes was making $9 million.
Wow.
Kurt Suzuki was making $6 million.
Okay.
Glenn Perkins was their closer, making $6 million. It was an interesting.
It
still
doesn't feel like
other offensive players.
Yeah, that still doesn't feel like it adds up.
Trevor Plouffe was making $7.5 million.
All right.
Kevin Jepson was in the.
There wasn't somebody that they were paying that wasn't on the team, and that's how the payroll got to that number.
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, because Maurer was almost a quarter of it. So.
By the way, just to add,
Miguel Sano was on that team.
I know it's this week in baseball past,
Yes.
right? That's what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
But Monday, interesting story. The
Yes,
Yankees
very interesting.
were supposed to start their home game against the Marlins at 2:05. They've moved that game back 4 hours because of the eclipse.
Well, and did I read that the idea was that they were almost doing it to come here and watch the eclipse kind of thing?
I haven't heard that. The only article I read said it's just too complicated.
And
game stoppages
and they also sort of said we think it's dangerous to have like
40,000 people looking up that
maybe otherwise aren't taking care of their vision, don't have the right glasses, all that sort of stuff. And so yeah,
probably their insurance company said probably be a
we're
good
out.
idea.
Yeah,
we're
not doing this.
business.
So they're going to play that game at night on Monday instead. All right, very good. That was this week in the rest of baseball. We'll do that every Friday throughout the course of the season. When we come back in, I want to touch on another visit. Of course, we talked. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about Kyle Van Noy coming back to Baltimore, and then they're hosting another visit with someone who you might recognize today. So we'll talk about those things, and maybe we'll do Tidbit next. That's all on the way. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Jeremy Kahn here. The ultimate sports betting experience in Maryland is at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook. Join me at either location in Canton or in Towson and place your bets in person and be a part of the action. It's the best in-class sports wagering experience, complete with the ultimate TV package, ensuring you can catch every game all day, every day. Their state-of-the-art facilities bring Las Vegas energy right here to Maryland just in time for postseason football. So visit the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook in Canton and Towson and elevate your game day experience and hang out with me to bet, watch, and win at the Turtle.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
I feel robbed. I got to be honest with you. I feel robbed. Everybody
that we didn't get to feel it?
I didn't feel any. So apparently there was an earthquake centered in New Jersey this morning. And
a lot of people in New York felt it.
A lot of people in New York felt it. Everybody in Philly apparently felt it.
What part of New Jersey was it?
It was in White House Station. I don't know exactly. Hang on a second.
Is that sort of near Camden, or?
I'll tell you.
If Philly felt it.
I'll tell you. Philly definitely felt it. It looks like it's a little bit closer to New York. So that's where they're saying that it was centered.
Where's New York?
New York would be here, right? There's New York, and then Philly would be right. So it's kind of in between. That makes sense.
So the Yankees had a camera on during BP too, and you can see the camera start shaking.
Well, and apparently on MLB Network you
Right.
could see it, and then a lot of people here felt it. And my timeline on Twitter this morning was.
Were they using some of the cameras that they use in Masson?
Oh, during
from
spring training?
Sarasota?
Jesus.
They must have brought them up.
It's fine. The players don't feel it, obviously, so they're just like swinging and taking cuts, and the camera's like.
So, what year was was that 2011?
2011
was the year with the famous earthquake, the Never Forget, where it shows a picture of a chair falling down and like never forget. Like I remember that was the first time in my life that I really felt an earthquake, and we were on the air at the old radio station that doesn't exist anymore, and we like bolted. It was like we said, let's go to break. And it was like the zombie apocalypse was like we all raced outside. Like, what do we do? You know, like what? Because we just didn't know. We'd never been through it before.
Yeah.
It was an earthquake. Like this is not something that happens here. There's the famous video of Torrey Smith was doing like an interview after practice when the earthquake hit, and he panicked and ran. Like but there's no reason to do it. Like you can't do anything.
Right.
You're so not used to it that you don't know what to do. And I'm telling you, that was exactly the way we were at the radio station. Thurl Nelson and I booked it out of the studio and outside. To do what? No idea.
Survive, obviously.
Right?
What do you mean?
Like, we were of the belief that the zombie apocalypse was upon us, and we needed to go face our enemies or something like that. We ran
I was
outside.
driving through an earthquake like 10 years ago or something. I think I was coming back from like Long Island.
Okay.
Or something. In the middle of the afternoon, I felt like all of a sudden a little thing, and then I didn't know it was an earthquake.
Right.
It was just something weird. I said, boy, that's weird. And then I heard there was an earthquake. And I said, well, that must have been that little.
That's what you felt, right?
Little thing.
Well, and that's what after like it stopped, we realized like, oh, it was an earth. We just, we're not used to it
I
around
think
here.
if you're in a bad one, you really
Yeah,
you know it.
right?
You know.
Yeah, I did not feel anything this morning.
No.
I didn't feel it at all.
It must have been more recently. It must have been while we were on the air, right? Like if the Yankees were already doing batting practice.
10:23 a.m. is what they said. 10:23 a.m. No, today. This morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel a thing. Maybe we were just having such captivating conversation.
We were talking with Jen and Marie Smith
right,
about that.
That's what it was. So yeah, apparently there was an earthquake this morning, and everybody's talking about it, but we got nothing. I got nothing to add to the conversation. Didn't feel it at all.
Right there.
We want to interview her. You want to bring her in here? How are you feeling? How are you still shaking up?
We're survivors too, Stan. Yeah.
True, we are technically survivors.
I guess so far at least.
We're unaware that we were. Final few days for you to get this print issue of Press Box, which is still available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. It was our big preview for the 2024 Baltimore Orioles. Stan, I know we're, 10 days out of the new print issue?
Yeah.
Do you want
to? The 17th.
Do you want to share with everybody or do you want to wait till next week?
No, we can share
all right
now. I don't think people are going to be that, our managing editor, Luke Jackson, is doing a deep dive into the grown-up Grayson.
He's making his second start of the season today. Now with the additional benefit, a lot of us were talking about seeing the way that Corbin Burns was interacting with Grayson during his first start last Saturday night and what that relationship might mean for Grayson. And it's another one of the subplots of the season that we don't, I know, Stan, that you're not giving up hope on the idea that Corbin Burns could stick around long term. And to be abundantly clear, I hope you're right about that. But I'm operating more under the idea that this is a one-year stint for Corbin Burns. And the question would be, by the end of the year, are we comfortable with the idea that Grayson Rodriguez is Corbin Burns moving forward? That Grayson Rodriguez is that guy, is the way that we talk about Corbin Burns now, although gave up 2 runs the other night, that bum.
Yeah.
It's got to go.
Bum.
He didn't finish the 6th inning. Need the money back, what are we doing? $15 million for that,
I'd like
really?
to get DL Hall back,
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the next print issue of Press Box, which will be available in about 10 days with a deep dive into Grayson Rodriguez on the cover. So we will look forward to that. I know some of the folks that Luke spoke to, in addition to Grayson Rodriguez, including our friend, the Hall of Famer John Smoltz, will be contributing to that cover story. So look forward to that. That'll be available about 10 days from now. A couple of Ravens notes. We didn't really talk about. Kyle Van Noy is back. The Ravens agreed to a 2-year deal with Kyle Van Noy yesterday. Apparently that had been in the work. When I saw Eric DeCosta last night, I was like, congratulations. Boy, you slid that in under the wire before you got over here. And he kind of laughed. He's like, well, not really. Like, that had been apparently in the works for a few days, and Kyle just wanted to announce it, I guess. So Kyle Van Noy back. So that alleviates some of the concern in the edge rush department. Felt like almost they had to get it done once Jadeveon Clowney had departed. Like, you better make sure it's not both of them that are gone. Clearly, Kyle Van Noy was outstanding. Despite showing up late a year ago, you wonder if, maybe being around for the entire offseason and the start of the season, could that production be even better? I don't know. It was crazy that it was as good as it was a year ago. It was wild that it worked out as well as it did. I still don't know that I feel like that's your alpha edge rusher, like the guy that's hopefully by committee between he, Matabike, a healthy David Ajabo, Adafe Owe, who, yes, has been disappointing in the sack department, but the other metrics say he had a very, or I don't want to say very good, but he had a good season based on other metrics a year ago. Maybe our friend Malik Ham stepping up and getting an opportunity here in year 2 has something to offer. And, there's still a draft. I don't know. It alleviates it. It doesn't make it go away for me. I'm still concerned about edge rush, but not as concerned as I was 24 hours ago.
If they added Matthew Judon, would that make you feel?
No, I think that'd be
a lot
outstanding.
better, or just
I don't know.
solved, or
definitely better. I would feel more like where we were a year ago, and it ended up working out pretty
really well. Yeah.
A lot of people brought up Yannick Ngakoue is still out there. I know that we're turned off by that because it was such a miss when the Ravens traded for Yannick Ngakoue a few years ago. But part of that was they had a coordinator that refused to use edge rushers as just edge rushers. Remember when that trade was made, I was like, well, they must be in agreement. They're okay with just using, because Yannick Ngakoue is not a 3-down linebacker.
Right.
So they must have decided that, and I've never talked to them about that, but that feels very much like a left hand wasn't talking to the right hand type of situation, because they acquired someone that was only an edge rusher, and they just didn't use players who were only edge rushers. They used total linebackers. So maybe now with a different defensive coordinator and a different defensive scheme, if they were to revisit the idea of Yannick Ngakoue, they would be in a better place to say, hey, we know how to use him this time, unlike the last time where we were trying to force him into being something that he was not. So I'd still be interested in that. I don't know what that cost is at this point in his career for Yannick Ngakoue.
Where's he been the last couple of years?
He was in Chicago. He did not have a great year with Chicago last year.
He's a couple of years from having a great year.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
In 2022, he had 9.5 sacks with the Colts.
Okay.
He's not that far removed from being very productive. He's 29 now.
29
That's
now. Perfectly fine.
Look, man, the way that this worked out with Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy last year, it's sort of like, yeah, go ahead. Let's see if
Find somebody you can plug in like that.
Keep rolling the dice. See if you can make it work. Other news today, a visit for the Baltimore Ravens from former Bill Deontay Hardy. Now, Deontay Hardy was once known as Deontay Harris, then changed his name to Deontay Hardy. He is a Baltimore native.
Bill's got nothing now.
I don't think Deontay Hardy was going to be what made or broke. I really don't know what they're going to do at wide. They've got
he, a wide receiver?
He's a receiver, but more of like he was a Pro Bowl returner
for New Orleans.
In New Orleans,
kind of
yes.
Ken and Kendra.
I don't think it's that.
Deontay
It was a very. Dude, Larry, we banged it out. If you didn't watch last week's episode of Curb,
classic.
It's really been a great season.
Yes,
it's been and that's why it kills
Did you guys. I just heard about this late last night, so it might have gone by you. The secretary. What's his position in Georgia's Brad Raffensperger?
Raffensperger, the Attorney General, right?
Did you read the letter that he wrote to Larry David?
No.
Oh, God.
No.
It's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Hang on.
Shows a great sense of humor.
Okay. All right. I can respect that.
Yeah.
I don't know who's calling me, but it's a local number, so.
Probably Brad Raffensperger.
It might be Brad Raffensperger. Now I want to read this letter. Hang on a second.
It's well worth it.
So for those that don't know, this season was set up by this Georgia election law that Larry David
violated by accidentally,
and then ends up being treated like a hero because of it. Although I think the last episode is setting us up for. It feels like he's kind of revisiting the Seinfeld finale and the idea that he might end up in jail this week on the finale. We'll see.
Yeah.
But that's good on Brad Raffensperger, who is
it's a hilarious. He really.
As the chief elections officer for the state of Georgia, we'd like to congratulate you on becoming the first and, to our knowledge, only person arrested for distributing water bottles to voters within 150 feet of a polling station. We apologize if you didn't receive celebrity treatment at the local jail. I'm afraid they've gotten used to bigger stars. It's the TMZ of mugshots. That is good.
Yeah.
That is good.
Good for him to show a sense of humor.
This is actually great.
It's fantastic.
This actually is really great, man. That's really good. Anyway, yes, so Deontay Hardy visiting. I think it is interesting. We were talking about this with Jonah Schaefer from The Banner the other day. Like, what will the returner role look a little bit different with the new kickoff in the NFL? Will returners, instead of just being pure speed guys, maybe now be guys that also it's more like a running back.
And you want two returners.
Yeah.
So if you have a Hardy and a Tylan Wallace.
You have the option for two returners, right? And I just don't know if it's all pure speed. So how familiar are you with the new kickoff in the NFL?
I read it one time when they voted for it,
Right.
and it's like
it
my
seems,
eyes
it seems
glazed over.
really
I mean,
cockamamie.
yeah.
100%. It seems extraordinarily cockamamie.
Is there a rouge involved?
No rouge.
There's
although
no-
I love the rouge. That was maybe my favorite part of the 2 years of Canadian football that we had in Baltimore. The one I was talking to Jamie Sharper was the defensive coordinator for the special teams coordinator for the DC team in the XFL. So like he got to use this, and we had a conversation with Jamie about it, and he said the first thing is you don't want speed for your gunners anymore.
Okay.
Because these guys are going to be lined up 5 yards, 10 yards away from each other? 5 yards away from each other.
And they can engage.
So you want leverage. You don't want speed. You now want, so those like special team roles might not be for the sixth wide receiver anymore, but now might be for like a fifth tight end or for
safety or something.
Or a little bulk, a little bit. He brought up like Adalius Thomas is the perfect representation of someone that you would want in this role now as a gunner.
That's what I'm thinking.
What it means for a return man, because you're not going to be able to build up the same amount of speed in the process, is you still want someone fast, but again, is it someone more like a running back with a little bit, sturdier tree trunks than it is necessarily the skinny, all-speed guy that we have seen in the past that has been an outstanding return man. So that'll be. I don't know that anybody has all the answers yet. That's something that these teams are going to have to spend way more time thinking about, and will impact roster construction in a way that we've never seen before. And maybe that's not something you can flip in this year, but after this year you start to look at that. But Deontay Hardy, Baltimore native, in for a visit with the Ravens today.
And I guess for what it's worth, I would trust John Harbaugh's special team judgment. So if he thinks two returners is like...
I hear you, but nobody's done... Like, nobody in the NFL had... This is so unique and different. Now, punt returns remain just punt returns, right? Like,
there's no change in
No change in that. So you still want that speed guy that... Well, first of all, the guy that catches the ball. That's what everybody in football always tells you. The priority of the guy that's back there for your... Catch the ball. That's the priority of the punt returner.
See ball, catch ball.
The second priority is the speed to return the ball. But the first priority is we got to come away from that. This play must end with us having the ball.
Yep.
That's our first priority. Eternally, the old argument, the old adage from special teams people were a kickoff return is an offensive play, a punt return is a defensive play. That you want to go get yards on a kickoff return. On a punt return,
you just want to survive.
Yards are cool if you can get them, but the priority is you are completing the turnover, right? Like, that's a fourth down. You have to come away with the ball. They consider it a defensive play.
Gotcha.
So we'll see if Deontay Hardy does end up being a Baltimore Raven. Want to go ahead and do Tidbit? Then we'll grab a break and do Tubular? Yeah. Tidbit is brought to you today by Goose Flights, available all over town. Goose Flights is a delicious lager, and more importantly, it goes to help a great cause, as $1.98 from every can sold goes to benefit the Goose Flights Foundation, the work that they're doing to provide non-emergency medical transport to those in need, and continuing the legacy of the late, great Tony Siragusa. Go get yourself a can of Goose Flights if you want to know where it's found. It's in partnership with Guilford Hall Brewery, but there's an entire list of places that you can find at PressBoxOnline.com/GooseFlights.
Speaking of while we were talking about the Mets, I did forget to mention that in the last 50 years, there have been, or they've been the only team in the last 50 years to go 13 consecutive innings in a single day without recording a hit. Despite doing that, they still were able to come away with the win, and they won game two. So they went 13 straight innings without getting a hit yesterday in the doubleheader. And I should have mentioned, I'm trying to pull up the tweet that I didn't mention it during this week in the rest of baseball, but Mookie Betts is having an absolutely unbelievable start to the season.
I hear he's good.
He is. Where's my Sarah Lang stats on Mookie Betts? But anyway, his OPS is I'll pull it up through his first 25 plate appearances. Mookie has the fourth best OPS ever since 1901. Not ever, but since 1901 has the highest OPS. There are only 3 guys who have had a higher OPS through the first 25 plate appearances.
It's too unique for me to have any. Alex Rodriguez.
2002 with a 2.052 OPS.
2002, Barry Bonds.
Yes. Barry Bonds. And then in 2006, this one's more random, 1.888 OPS.
Jason Bay.
Chris Shelton.
I don't remember Chris Shelton.
In 2006. And then in 2015, I think, was he a Dodger at this point? I think Adrian Gonzalez.
Okay.
1.884. And then that is the group that Mookie Betts is part of through his first 25 plate appearances.
He's very good.
Hunter Renfroe.
God bless those guys.
Hunter Renfroe got another outfield assist yesterday, and he now has 66 outfield assists.
Has he separated himself as the greatest Hunter Renfroe at this point? Like, has he gone ahead of the other Hunter Renfroe?
I would say it's still pretty close, honestly. Right?
Like, God, just keep going. Keep going.
66 outfield assists since he came into the league in 2017. That is the most of any outfielder. Can you name, since 2017, when he came into the league, the rest of the top 6 outfield assisters?
Since Hunter Renfroe came into the league, the top 6. Is Mookie Betts one of them?
Mookie Betts is not one of them.
Is Anthony Santander one of them?
Anthony Santander is not one of them.
How about Aaron Judge?
No Aaron Judge.
How about
Aaron Judge has 40. That puts him at 14th.
How about Acuna?
No Acuna.
Give us some hint. Are any of them center fielders, or they're all corner outfielders?
They actually are. It looks like they're all corners. Yeah, I mean they might have played center once or twice, but
Justin Hayward.
No Jason Hayward.
Jason Hayward. I'm sorry.
Adolis Garcia.
No Adolis Garcia. All right, how about, can you name who has the most outfield assists all time, ever?
Vlad Guerrero.
No, not Vlad Guerrero.
He had a hell of an arm.
Roberto Clemente?
Clemente's a good guess, not Clemente.
Al Kaline.
Not Al Kaline. Top 2 guys are old-timey guys.
Old-timey, like before the 50s?
Yes.
Oh, God. I have no idea.
If you get these 2, I'll end it.
Joe DiMaggio.
Mel Ott.
Joe DiMaggio.
No.
Eddie Matthews.
No.
Rocky Colavito.
Mel
Duke
Ott is
Snyder.
20th all time.
Oh, okay.
Babe Ruth.
256.
Tris Speaker.
Tris Speaker is number 1
Hey!
all time.
Hey! We love naming old-timey baseball names. It's one of my favorite things to do.
449 outfield assists. That's a record I don't think is ever going to be broken. 449 outfield assists for Tris Speaker.
Is there anybody else named Tris?
I'm gonna say probably not.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
say
a
it's
very unusual.
he cornered the market on Tris's.
Maybe we try to bring it back.
You think that I should have another kid so I can name my next kid Tris?
Yeah, why not?
I think we're out.
Would be a
Number
big career
2
move for Griffin.
Yeah,
to change his first name to Tris.
Number
Tris
2
Bass.
is another old-timey baseball name.
Yeah.
I guess Duke Snyder, right?
Yes, you did.
You said before the 50s.
Correct.
Yeah, Duke Snyder was...
Yeah, come on, Glenn.
I would have thought Duke Snyder was before the 50s. I didn't realize that.
He might have played 48 and 49 or something like that.
Jeez. So, sorry. There's an old-timey baseball name that we haven't
Duke
named
Snyder
yet.
played from 1947 to 1964.
He definitely played before 1950.
Wow.
I got that, Stan.
Yeah. I have no idea.
Old-timey.
And then
who was an outfielder. That's the other
Yeah.
part of it, too. Who was an old-timey baseball player who was an outfielder. Jimmy Fox was...
Not Jimmy Fox. Were they teammates, though? I don't know.
So it couldn't be an African American.
No.
Okay.
He was a Detroit Tiger.
Ty Cobb.
Oh, yeah, Ty Cobb. Yeah, 100%. Son of a bitch.
Ty Cobb, 392 outfield assists, number 2 all time.
392?
Yeah. Tris Speaker was 449.
And what's the current leader got? Like, what's the...
Like, since 2017... Give me a date.
66.
Yeah, Hunter Renfroe, 66.
So that's how many Hunter Renfroe has in his career?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a long time to go.
Do you want like a date to like if you do since 19, so like more like the modern era, since 1954, Roberto Clemente is number 1.
How many?
283.
So part of this is the guys just got significantly faster, and
Most likely,
I'm guessing
yes.
that also innovations with were there. I don't
So
know
the
this.
top
Was
five-
there a third base coach in the
Yeah, as far as
1920s?
I know.
Okay, so guys got smarter on the bases and.
Well, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the entire
So
strategy.
even though arms
is
are
there.
getting stronger,
How many did
supposedly.
Al Kaline have?
Al
He's not
Kaline.
even
Al
in-
Kaline. So I did since 1954. Al Kaline had he's 8th. 168.
Yeah, he was
The top
good.
five.
How about Rocky Colavito? Did he have many?
Let's see. I'm trying to get you an answer. So since 1954, the top 5 are Clemente 1, Hank Aaron 2, Carl Yastrzemski 3, Willie Mays 4, Barry Bonds 5.
Those guys are okay.
They all
It's
had-
an okay
That's Barry
crew.
Bonds 5. How
Yeah.
about Bobby Bonds? Was he in there at all?
He's further down the list. I'll try to find it.
There's your outfield assist information for the day.
You're welcome.
All right. We come back in. We'll get tubular. Let you know what's going on this weekend. That's on the way as we wind down for a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Hey, it's Jeremy Kahn. This postseason, bet in person at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks with locations in Canton and in Towson, and enjoy the best in-class sports wagering experience at their state-of-the-art facilities, bringing an unmatched sports betting thrill.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well, then don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for ROFO Rewards and upgrade to ROFO Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis. AJMichaels.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flight's Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here as we're winding down on a Friday edition of GCR. Don't forget, countysports.zone is the place to go for all the latest in local high school sports updates, schedules, stats, results, rankings, play pick'em for baseball, softball, girls and boys lacrosse. It's all there. countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Stan, I know you're headed up to New York. Are you going to be, is the schedule altered for Monday at all, or will you be back in time?
I think we'll be able to do it.
Okay.
I'll be back. I want to get back before the eclipse, which is going to happen at like 4.
Somewhere, but like
hang on a second. 3:45 to 4:10 or something like that. I'm hoping to be back by 1:30, and we'll probably go on after the eclipse, like about 5:30 or something like that.
Apparently, again, it's between 2:05 and 4:30 with the peak expected between.
Is this as complicated as the new kickoff
It's starting
rules?
to feel like it's as complicated as the.
And is that because there's an earthquake?
I don't know. Begins at 2:05, maximum apparently at 3:21.
3:21.
Apparently, the maximum time for
you don't want to be staring at the
is at 3:21, and then it ends at 4:33 for the eclipse on Monday.
We won't see it from here, or like we.
Well, everybody, you can walk outside and everybody would see it.
All right, that's too much.
But this is again one of those ones you don't want to be.
Yeah, you don't want to
staring
look directly at it. 100%. You don't want to walk outside the White House like a dolt and just look right up like ah. I will tell you from the last eclipse that I felt very underwhelmed by it. Like I just remember like looking up like that's it? Like that's what we got out of
Peggy Lee song. Is that
yeah,
all there
it's
is?
a lot of that. That's what I felt from the last one. So I'm not making my plans around it or doing I saw that CNN is doing Eclipse in America on Monday afternoon. I'm going to be good. I'll just continue right along with my day. Also, because I'm going to WrestleMania on Sunday, I'll be very tired. Very, very tired. All right, here's what's coming up this weekend, totally tubular-wise. It's brought to you by Atman's Deli. Of course, Atman's Harbor Point. Amazing. 1% for Casimir? Stan's playing the grid this morning. He couldn't decide on an athletic angel. I said the obvious one was Reggie Jackson.
You can't use him.
It would get you too much.
Yeah, it'd be like 40-some%.
I suggested Don Baylor. And then Griffin.
He would have been less than Reggie. There's no question.
Definitely less, but you think more than Casimir?
I think he would have been like 15%.
Don Baylor, really?
Yeah,
well, now I want to know.
Yeah,
now I want to know. I'm firing up a grid just so I can find out what the answer is on Don Baylor. Hang on a second. Don Baylor would have gotten you today. All right, yeah, I know about the Immaculate Grid. Baylor.
Yes.
Don Baylor would have gotten you 3%.
3%?
So still more than
Very
Casimir.
good.
Yeah, you do win.
Very
That's a good point.
I got 1%.
3%.
The interesting one is, do me a favor, since you're starting it.
Yes.
The Boston Red Sox pitcher that got 20 wins, put in Louis Tiant.
Ooh.
Luis.
How much do you think Dan Herron gets?
Because I did Jim Lonborg, and I thought that was going to be 0.5.
What was that?
5%.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
For Jim Lomborg?
Yeah, he won 20 games one time at 67.
Holy smokes. All right, Louis Tiant would have gotten you 5%.
Same exact answer.
5%.
Dan Herron, 3%. I'm surprised.
Dan Herron won
an
20
athletic
games.
that won
an
20
athletic,
games,
yeah,
not a
yeah.
Red
No, this
Sox.
is a Red Sox.
Yeah.
It's a Red Sox.
Yeah, he did it for the
I was still doing
athletics
the
20-game
okay.
column.
Oh, okay. I can use that.
I didn't realize Dan Herron won 20 games. I got to be honest with you. I did not realize he had won 20 games.
I was saying him for an Angel A, so I didn't even use him for the 20.
Oh,
Let's see what
okay.
he gets for
Dan Herron?
20 games for the
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think so.
You ruined my grid.
I didn't.
Oh, wait a
Glenn ruined. I didn't.
Well, you said Dan Herron.
For an Angel A. I thought I was still on Angel A.
All right. You had used what's his face?
I was just trying to see how much lower I could get.
I blame Griffin. You want to finish? You want to finish my grid here, Stan? You can do that. I've got the Tiant and Baylor up so far. If you want to have that one.
Good start.
All right, Atman's Deli. Everything you love about Atman's now with a bar at the new Atman's Harbor Point. Everything. They've
Great
got
place to watch the game today.
Awesome place to watch the game today.
4:12 start time. Orioles and Pirates.
The delicious corned beef piled high. Plus, of course, the desserts, the soups, the hand-rolled bagels. It's all there all day long. Atman's Deli. atmansdeli.com to find out their daily specials. All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise this weekend. Orioles-Pirates, as Stan mentioned, starts this afternoon, 4 o'clock. Grayson Rodriguez and Jared Jones. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, Tyler Wells and Bailey Falter. Sunday, 1:30, Dean Kramer and Marco Gonzalez. Masson 2 for all 3 games. Women's Final Four tonight, NC State, South Carolina at 7, followed by UConn, Iowa. Those games on ESPN.
It's going to be a huge number, isn't it, that are going to watch the second
We were trying
game?
to figure out if it's going to be as big. So it was $12.3 million for the game on Monday.
Right.
I'm guessing it might be more in the range of $10 million. I just think the appeal of the rematch was so bonkers that, like, you can't fully match. But with the lead-in being South Carolina, maybe that helps.
Right.
Maybe it's possible they could match the 12.3 million number.
They're going to come real close to it.
But yes, Paige Beckers from UConn, outstanding versus Caitlin Clark. And Paige Beckers probably the best defensive player in basketball. I don't know that that's going to matter because Caitlin Clark is Caitlin Clark. But that's the second semifinal tonight. The men's Final Four tomorrow starts at 6 o'clock, NC State, Purdue, followed by Alabama, UConn. And again, come join us. We will be at Sports and Social inside Live Casino and Hotel. Lacrosse this weekend, Penn State, Hopkins, 2 o'clock on ESPNU tomorrow. Maryland hosts Ohio State at noon on Big Ten Network Plus. UMBC's at Lowell at noon on ESPN Plus. Navy Lafayette noon on ESPN Plus. Loyola hosts Bucknell at 1 o'clock on ESPN Plus as well. Towson hosts Hofstra tomorrow at noon on Flow Sports. Sunday, the Women's Championship game is at 3 o'clock on ESPN and ABC. And, of course, WrestleMania this weekend. You can't miss that. Saturday and Sunday night on Peacock. I'll be there Sunday night.
Where's it being held?
Philadelphia at the Eagles Stadium. A lot of rumors that Jason Kelsey will be involved with WrestleMania in some capacity. And
Any shot Taylor Swift will be there?
I would be very surprised by Taylor Swift at WrestleMania.
With her boyfriend?
Yeah, Travis. I don't think. But you know what?
Who's her boyfriend?
Never know.
Never know. Never know. Everything else sports-wise you can find at glennclarkradio.com. Non-sports-wise, obviously, the finale of Curb is most important.
Finale of Curb on Sunday night. Also Sunday night, I guess going head-to-head with WrestleMania on Peacock will be the CMT Music Awards.
God. How do you choose?
I don't know. Hosted by Kelsey Ballerina and Kane Brown, so I don't know which one
That's tough.
you're going to go with.
That is tough.
I guess you'll be there.
I don't have the option. But I'll probably put it up on my phone. Well, I'll be at WrestleMania, but my heart will be at the CMT Awards.
Not much else otherwise. That Colin Farrell in the show called Sugar on Apple TV Plus. I don't know. Mary and George on Stars. This is Julianne Moore plays. She is the Countess of Buckingham.
Okay.
And so she gets her son to seduce King James. It's like an old,
the guy that wrote the Bible.
Is that who King James?
I don't know.
Did he write? He didn't.
There's a
write the
King
Bible.
James version of the Bible.
Oh,
It's
King
very
James.
well. There's like two famous versions of the Bible. There's of course the King James version and the Trump version. Those are the two that everybody knows.
I don't think I'm gonna watch
What's
this.
your favorite verse of the
Trump
Bible?
Do you see the guy on SNL? What's his name? James Austin.
That plays
that
Trump?
does Trump, whose impression is just the best of all of them. They did a cold open that was just Trump pitching the Bible, and God, it was good. God, it was good.
Well, I like Julianne Moore, and when she does these like roles where
I like
she's like
Julianne Moore
where she's like kind
too.
of like an evil woman, like because the May December thing.
That was not a good movie. That was not.
It was not a good movie.
It was
but
not
like
a good
Julianne
movie.
Moore was
She was fine, but it was
pretty
not
good
a
in it.
good film.
Kristen Wiig is hosting SNL. Forgot about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very, very good.
News in baseball. The Yankees have announced that they've signed Rougned Odor to
Oh, yeah.
a minor league deal.
Okay.
I don't want to see him
In
shave
case
the
you
beard.
hadn't heard,
right.
In case you hadn't heard, relief pitcher who was supposed to play a significant part of their bullpen, Jonathan Loaisiga, is out 60 days.
They might just keep scoring runs, so it doesn't matter. They are loaded.
So they got Rougned, yeah.
That's right. That makes all the difference. That makes up for it. Stan, great to see you. Appreciate you as always, sir.
See you.
Thanks for coming in to hang out. Of course, at Stan the Fan on Twitter is how you follow him. And he'll be back on Monday with Ross and Luke. Thanks today as well to Janet Marie Smith as well as Stephen Brault. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh my God, it's so good.
tab at glennclarkradio.com. I don't know what we're doing on Monday. We'll deal with that on Monday. Anything?
No.
Okay.
Orioles will be coming back from Pittsburgh.
Great. We'll deal with that on Monday. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Ruth's Chris, Live Casino and Hotel, Atman's Deli, A.J. Michaels, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Glory Days Grill, your local Toyota dealer, and buyatoyota.com. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, the Bat Around with Paul and Ryan at 10 a.m., and then come join Griffin and I for the semifinals tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, at Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel. Have a great weekend. Go Birds. Go all the local lacrosse teams. Duke sucks.